The land down under has never been easier to reach. United Airlines has more flights between the U.S. and Australia than any other U.S. airline, so you can fly nonstop to destinations like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Explore dazzling cities, savor the very best of Aussie cuisine, and get up close and personal with the wildlife. Who doesn't want to hold a koala? Go to united.com/Australia to book your adventure.
Hi, this is HR Human Rights from Bad Brains, and you're listening to Coffee and Hardcore Podcast. Much love and positivity.
Coffee and hardcore, coffee and hardcore, coffee and hardcore, both be nice. Coffee and hardcore, coffee and hardcore, coffee and hardcore. Doing it right. We got the combo, we got the juice, we got the joke, we got reviews, we got the gold from you out the border. If you like the back, you better support them. Coffee and hardcore, coffee and hardcore, coffee and hardcore, both be nice. Coffee and hardcore, coffee and hardcore, coffee and hardcore. Come on,
What's up, Coffee and Hardcore Podcast listeners? Episode 2 coming at you. Wiley Willis from Chicago, Illinois, with my trusty co-host,
Mick Cox from Parkersburg, West Virginia.
yeah!
Oh, yeah. How you doing, Mick?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
Good, good. Good to see that we made it to an episode 2.
I know. It didn't end with just one, but we're actually making it into the next month. So I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah, and we're interviewing Sergeant Vegan on his new book, his kid's book he's coming out with.
Awesome.
We're going to talk about his book that he's already released, and we're also chatting with Kyle from Bridge City Coffee.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. So let me just put a disclaimer out there, and I want Mick's thoughts on it because I don't just want this to be my rambling thoughts, but Mick and I are in no way professional coffee drinkers, and we do not attend meetings on coffee, nor do we have our coffee club membership cards.
No.
We are merely semi-pro race car drivers and amateur tattoo artists. Right?
Yes. True. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It's in our
we
spare
do this
time.
for fun in our spare time. We do this for fun and enjoy coffee as a hobby and chatting with folks about it. Coffee is a great added flavor to life, and hardcore just happens to be our soundtrack.
Yes.
Did that sound rehearsed? Because it was.
That could almost be like our theme or our mission statement. I feel so professional right now. Like,
yeah, I can't be professional after that giggle fit I just had. But and I'm probably not qualified to even have a podcast with the word coffee in it, to be honest. But Kyle, he kind of eased my brain a little bit, and he says it's okay. So I'm gonna take that. Bridge City Coffee says it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they
okay.
helped us out. They helped us out. Gave us some love and some encouragement, and we feel all right now.
So I'm gonna just jump in here and I want your feedback, Mick. Like, I made this outline, and after each one, I want your feedback. So we're gonna talk constructive criticism from listeners. All right.
Yeah.
So here's how I'm gonna start this.
Hold on.
Dropped episode. Yes.
Hold on.
I'm holding.
First thing though, one episode, and we already have critics. So that should tell you something, that we're doing something right.
But come on, isn't that life? That's
yes, of course.
Especially if you ask for it. Because I was going to lay this out. Like, I sent this link to a good number of my friends and people who I trust, and said, hey, here's my first podcast. If you have 2 hours, I know it's long, and you don't want to hear me for 2 hours, but if you can at least listen to a half hour, listen to it, give me some constructive criticism, throw it my way so we can be better at this, so we can be better at podcasting. This is my first podcast. And out of the people I sent it to, I got about 24 replies. That's not true. I got a little less. I think I got like 16 or 17 because the other one, I got 24 altogether, but the other ones were just from people who I didn't ask to send me criticism, but they did anyways, which I was 100%. No, I was 100% fine with it because I think it's good. And some of it was positive. Like, we talked to Kyle and he had some positive things to say. But let's jump into it.
Okay.
Constructive criticism from our listeners. Boom. All right. So are you ready? You ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
So first one we got was turn the clips down in between the talking. And I got to say, I agree, but I know you and I talked about this and you had a reason for why they were louder. So let's hear it.
It's kind of psychology. Why are commercials louder when you watch TV? Because most of the time
They are.
And we normally tune out when we get to a segment that, and so that stinger comes in. This is radio talk because I was on radio for like 8 years. The stinger comes in and it kind of wakes you up a little bit. Oh yeah, I was listening to this. Well, they're changing to a different subject or whatever. So that's why, stingers are a little louder in between or whatever. But at the same time, they can be obnoxious if they're too loud, like when commercials are too loud. So yeah, that's something we should work on. Level it out a little bit.
Yeah, because when commercials are too loud, I hit the mute button. So that brings me into the second one. Make the song clips longer, also quieter. And this was one of my buddies who reached out to me and said this. He said, and I said, well, why? Not longer. I understand why he wants song clips longer because he said he was just getting into it. And then he was like, oh, but I don't know if we want to play the whole song or not. I don't know. That's something we should talk about. But he also said he was driving his son home and his son was sleeping in the back. And when the music came on, it was so loud that he thought it was going to wake him up. He's like, oh shit. And turned it down. So he said, otherwise it would have been fine. But because of that situation that he was in, with his kid sleeping in the back in the music, he was afraid it was going to wake him up.
How is that my problem?
I guess it's not your problem, but it goes to the number one, turn clips down, turn the music down too. It might be a little loud comparative to the talking. Kind of like we said in the movies, you know what I'm saying? We're talking and then all of a sudden this music is just blasting you in the face or in the chest. You're like, whoa, where's the volume? And to be honest, when I was listening on my headphones, when you sent it to me, I thought that too a little bit. I was like, oh, I turned it down just one, it's not your problem.
I'm just being funny.
No, you're the one that does all the editing and all that, adding that stuff. So I'm very grateful. I'm trying to listen to the listeners here.
You're trying to be the voice of reason.
So here's another one. Mick's microphone smells louder than mine. I think what they meant was sounds louder. But they wrote smells, so I put it in there. Someone also said Mick's microphone is louder and better quality. I also agree, but Mick is a professional podcaster who does 4 of these. I have 1. I even dropped money to do this, and Mick came up with a thing hey, we should make some merch, and with the money, we can buy you, some better gear and whatever. And I was like, I don't know. If for some reason more than 2 people listen to this podcast and we got sponsored or something, and maybe we made some money to throw back into the podcast, possibly, but we're hobbyists. We do this for fun.
Right.
What's your take on that?
Well, the reason why I have a better mic is just because I worked in a music store for a while. I've also done this for a while. I've also done recording for different podcasts and stuff. So I have a nice Audio-Technica podcast mic. It's specifically made for that. So that's why I have that. If we were just starting this off the cuff and, coming together, then I'd have a mic like yours and it would be, whatever. Yeah. But that's why my mic sound right. That's why my mic sounds a little bit better than you.
Right.
To me, it just makes it sound more raw. We're just sitting chatting on the phone, talking, and everybody gets to peep into our brains, so to speak.
Yeah. Even if they want to or not.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, so this is on the coffee aspect. It says, and I think we talk about this with Kyle. Maybe it'll get edited out. I don't know. But we said espresso wrong. There's no X in espresso.
Wow, man, freaked out. I'm
guessing, this is me saying this. I'm guessing that's like saying tattoo gun to a tattoo artist. They cringe. It's a tattoo machine because I know, I'm not really part of tattoo culture, but I have lots of tattoos. A lot of my friends are tattoo artists. And I know every time someone says hey, sick tattoo gun. They're like, I don't shoot tattoos out of that gun. It's a machine. Like, it's probably like one of the same things with like coffee nerds and coffee hipsters. It's probably like saying tattoo gun. Would you agree on that?
Yeah. But,
So I get it.
But, it's one of those things like, I'm from West Virginia. You're originally from Michigan and Chicago. What do they expect? We just like coffee.
Yeah, we talk funny, bro. But like I said, I get it. Like, anytime there's a subculture, and anytime you dabble in something, and someone's gonna take it more serious than you, and if they make it their life, they could get offended. So I get it. Tattoo gun.
And we kind of grew. I mean, being in the hardcore punk scene, we kind of grew around. There's some elitist in that scene too. So we're
Sure.
used to that conversation. So no biggie.
Yeah. But see, I've always just been like goofy about that kind of stuff,
Right. I know.
Like, I don't take myself serious with that. If someone, like, the funniest thing is when someone's like, oh, you're not punk rock. Like, they look at you and you're just like, okay, who cares? Really?
I used to get that. I used to get that quite a bit.
My whole day up.
I did. I'm sorry. But I used to get that quite a bit when I would go to shows, because I was the 90s hardcore kid that wore sweater vests to play shows in. Like, I wore the sweater vest with the t-shirt and
I remember that.
And the jeans.
The pictures.
Totally did that back in the day, and show up and you show up in like Cleveland hardcore scene doing that, and like people are going to be like, you're not hardcore. Like,
yeah,
being into some trouble there. But that's the awesome, the opposite side of it, of what I loved about hardcore so much, is how accepting it was. Yeah, there's always elitists, but at the same time, there's always openness and connection. So, yeah.
Right. There's always good. You add people into the mix, you're going to get good, you're going to get bad.
Right.
That's just how that works, man.
So listen, folks, we just love coffee. We're not experts. We just love it. That's it.
Same with hardcore.
Exactly.
We just love hardcore. We don't know every single hardcore band.
No. We just
send us hardcore bands to listen to that are unknown or that are local from your city, please. Email us at wileymurderwillis@gmail.com. And we'll share it with Mick.
Because we want to help out, like, whatever scenes out there. We totally want to review bands, get them out there so people can listen to them and check them out. I mean, that's kind of what this is all about. We want to hear new stuff and get into it and love it, because that's what we love. We love it. And then we want other people to, experience it and have fun with it too.
That's right, Mick. That was very wise of you. I'm just kidding, but I'm not kidding. You're right. Sorry, I'm reading from my What Not to Say Bad Podcaster book again. So another thing which kind of ties into this last one is there was a lot of lightweight coffee drinking talk, but then this person said, I'm mostly joking. It was really funny and I'm lighthearted about it. And another person said there was some amateur coffee talk, which is, I guess, the same thing.
Yeah.
As weak coffee talk or whatever. Again, come on, people. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that, because I probably drink. I'm not a heavy coffee drinker. Like, let's see, I wake up in the morning, I have 2 cups of coffee before work. I go to work and I'm drinking iced coffee throughout the day in my thermos. So I probably have about 5 more cups of coffee throughout the day. So I'm probably drinking about 8 cups of coffee a day. Is that light drinking?
It may be compared to some, but I don't know. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I drink. I mean, I drink 2 or 3 in the morning. I drink some at night before I go to bed. I'm drinking coffee a lot. When I'm at work, I normally get one before I leave. So yeah, I mean,
why do we feel like we have to justify this?
I don't know. I think maybe it's because we just straight up drink it, and I have some different ways of making it. But for the most part, I mean, we just enjoy drinking it. We want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I don't know about any.
Sure.
we just don't know the aspects and the ins and out. We are getting into, and we talked to Kyle a little bit about this. We are getting into like where it comes from, it being fair trade, how it's made, stuff like that. So we're learning. It's a learning experience.
Yeah, people, we're learning, and you can help us learn too. Keep sending me stuff. Like when people send me these critiques and these positives and everything, I have not been offended by one of them. One of them made me scratch my head, and we'll get into that. But I love this. I accept it. I want it. So keep sending us stuff. I appreciate it.
And we
Same with Mick. Send Mick stuff.
We joke around and stuff, but we're taking it serious. This is us taking this serious.
Oh yeah.
Sure. So someone said I talked more than Mick. They weren't sure if that was on purpose, and they asked, whose podcast is it, Mick or Wiley's? So why don't you, since I talk too much, why don't you tell people how this podcast formed on your end? Like how I got a hold of you and everything from your perspective.
From my perspective. All right. So I'm going to tell the whole story. I'm sitting on my deck with my wife. We're enjoying a nice day. And I think it was the morning.
Wiley ruins it.
No, it's in the morning. And you're like, you start sending me Facebook messages and you're like, I need to call you. Can I call you? Can I call you? I need to send you. So I say
that sounds
yes.
Exactly like me.
So I answer the call and we start talking, and you brought up, hey, I got this idea for a podcast, and you told me the story about how you had posted some stuff with bands and the caption and everything, and it kind of taken off, and people were like, hey, do you have a podcast where can I listen to it? And you just straight up asked and said, I know you do podcasts. Would you want to do this with me? And I was like, yeah. And my wife could hear you talk, and she was like, do it. And I was like, okay. Because I was like, it's two of my favorite things. It's coffee and hardcore. And for me, I was like, this is something that I could have fun with and hang out with a good friend that I don't get to see quite a whole lot, but you get to talk to through Facebook. I was like, yeah, this would be awesome. Let's do this. And it was like a week later, we were already planning on recording and doing it. So yeah, that's how it started. I think the reason why people thought that you talked more than me this last one is because we had a segment where we talked about cancel culture, and there was a lot that you had to say, and I kind of listened and responded. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like, so it wasn't so much like you talked more than me. I think there was just a lot that you had to get out and you wanted to talk about, and I helped and responded, and as a good friend, supported. So yeah,
sure. So on that note, I wouldn't say I don't own this podcast. You know, you don't own this podcast. Like, we're creating it right now. It's some of it's note taken, some of it's spontaneous. And like, if I ever got too busy, like, you know, when Libby and I have a kid, well, because you know how it is having your first kid, like the first, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like, I might even be like, hey, Mick, I got to take a break for 4 months. Could you keep it going without me? Or could you find it? And I hope you would do it. And then I hope I would be able to come back. You know what I mean? If that happened, you know?
Right.
So I don't think either one of us owns it, but I think it was just an idea that I don't even own either, because it was presented to me by people like, hey, I didn't even think about doing a podcast. I never thought in my life I would do a podcast. And it just, the more messages I got, like, where can I see this link? Or is this a podcast? How do I listen to this? I was like, maybe we could do it, but it's a lot more work than I thought it was. And
that's why we only
for real
on a month.
Yeah. And the thing is I couldn't do it without you either, because you do all the editing and all the clip drops. Like, you do a lot of the behind the scenes work. So I would say it's most definitely both of ours. I just try to come up with an outline every month, and I send it to you, and then we go from there. But a lot of it's spontaneous, how I want it to be, you know?
Right.
I was told 2 hours is a little long, and then I was told by other people that 2 hours is perfect length. And I was told that we should try to make it an hour and a half. And I was told that after 2 hours, someone was sad that it ended. So I don't know what to do there. I think anything over 2 hours would be crazy. I think anything under an hour and a half, we couldn't get what we need to say said.
Right.
So I'm cool with that hour 45, 2 hour mark. What do you think?
I'm there. We'll see what happens.
You're there?
Yeah. I mean,
we'll see what happens.
The first one, that's the first one. There was a lot of introduction that needed to happen and some other things. We'll see where this one goes. I mean, we, with our guests and everything, it might take off and there'll be a lot of great information that people need to hear. So we'll see.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And you know what, people? You don't have to listen to all of it either.
You can listen to it.
You can turn our flapping gums off.
Yeah. You can listen to it one day and then come back the next day and listen to the rest. You could split it up over 4 days and listen to it a half hour at a time. You got
Pretend
choices.
it's 4 episodes that are a half hour long.
There you go.
Am I right?
Yes.
There you go.
You've got options.
So a few people said that their favorite section was the cancel culture part and would like to hear more talk like that, which was weird to me because I thought that I wasn't even going to originally talk about that stuff, but that was really on my heart. And so I ended up talking about it, and some people liked it. And then again, some people didn't. But I'll get to that because I have another one that said, "You said we recorded this already too many times. You don't need to repeat. You don't need to repeat yourself that much, except for it was kind of really funny."
That's why I left it in there.
When I listen to the podcast, when I listen to the podcast, I'm like, oh my goodness, how many times do I say this? Like 4? I caught that too, but I kind of laughed too. After like the third one, I laughed.
Yeah, I was like, this is kind of how we are, so why take away from it? So let's just let it roll.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and I noticed, like, when I first listened to podcasts, all the editing you did, I was like, dude, this turned out great. And then I just sat back and remembered the stuff that you cut out, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad he cut that out. Oh, that was a wise choice to cut that out. So I approve of your editing skills. So this is the one that kind of, it didn't irritate me. It didn't make me mad in any way. It just made me scratch my head pretty hard. I might have scratched it so hard I bled. I don't know. And I remember I sent you a screenshot of the person who said this stuff. But they sent this to me in what do you call those little sound clips? So it wasn't even typing. It was like 6 sound bites or whatever that you can send through Messenger.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone said they thought we didn't make it clear in the cancel culture section that we meant, quote, people need to be canceled that actually commit crimes and not just accuse them, unquote. This person said, quote, people get accused of crimes and some don't actually do the said crimes and get canceled for being accused of it even when they don't do it, unquote. I personally think we made that point clear. Am I mistaken?
No, not at all. I even went back and
I did as well and listened.
Yeah. And there's a couple times I was like, maybe we were going a little, I don't know. I thought maybe we didn't go far enough with that, but I thought we'd get people saying the opposite of what was just said.
Sure.
But no, I thought we covered our bases pretty well with that. I mean, we were pretty strong with, there's people that have done horrible, nasty things, businesses, corporations, people themselves that, yes, that's where legit cancel culture, that's where that has to work. But people who, you disagree with or that you're in a conversation with and you just don't like it, you're just going to say, screw you, you're canceled. And, and oh, you have a business, cancel that. We were like, no, that's just being a jerk. I mean, we were pretty explicit on that.
Yeah. I think, that's not what I think this person's saying. This person was saying, basically when I went back and listened, when I did the disclaimer, when I actually said what kind of cancel culture we're talking about, like this person was saying, when I said you should be canceled if you're raping people, if you're abusing people, if you're actually doing bad things. But I say that. I say, if you're actually doing these bad things, you should be canceled. So I thought I made it clear that I wasn't talking about people that were just getting accused of it.
Right.
That I was talking about people who actually are doing it.
Right.
Like, of course, if you get accused of something and you're not guilty of it, no, in no way should you be canceled. Like, I understand that people are vindictive, and I understand that people are going to come at people and accuse them of things sometimes to get what they want. I get that. And that is not right either.
Right.
And
right.
the people said we weren't clear on that, which I think we were, but I just don't think we went into detail about it.
Right. Right.
And this person went as far as to say they probably won't listen to our podcast anymore because we picked the side of the person accusing people of not doing the crime, and we didn't dig into the facts. They said we talked against the far radicals on both sides and then picked the far radical point of view. So I'm guessing the point got lost on this person.
Yeah.
And Mick and I can proudly say that we are against cancel culture unless the people who are accused are actually guilty, unless they 100% committed these crimes and it's proven and they are guilty. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought we were pretty plain on that. I don't know.
Right. And I'm learning you can't please everybody, and we have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, at some point we have to take a position and be like, well, we tried, you know? Well, the thing is I have a heart for people. I do care about people. And I talked to this person for a little while, and I chatted with this person a lot because I care what they think and what they have to say.
Right.
Because they weren't being obnoxious. They were actually true about what they were saying. So when I can tell someone's not being a troll and they're not being obnoxious, they actually think this, even though I might think it's out there, I still respect it because I want to see where they're coming from. So I chatted with this person for a while, and this person said that they would be listening again because I care enough to engage with the listener and I take criticism well. And I told them I just want to make a good podcast. I'm new at this, and but I'm definitely not new at dealing with people's opinions. So I appreciate that you will be listening again. Anyways, on a personal note that I took, I feel like I sniffed a lot on the podcast. I brought that up to my lady. She's like, I didn't notice it. Did you notice it?
Yeah. But
yeah, me too.
There's nothing you can do about it. You know, if that's happening at that moment, it's just there.
It's them damn allergies. I don't know. But so also people got back to me about the theme song. And out of the 16 people that said anything about the theme song, only one of those people, so, 15 people liked our song better. And one person liked the one we didn't pick.
Really? Really?
Yeah. So it looks like we won.
We won. That's awesome. We were going to win.
Vote.
We were going to win anyway, but
yeah, we were going to win anyways. But we got the popular vote. So
yeah, that's awesome.
My favorite criticism that I got was don't talk about putting out records that are sold out already when the podcast airs.
Oh. Yeah.
That made me laugh. A few people were upset about that. Like, you don't even know how many people messaged me and emailed me like, seriously, they're sold out already. I can't get one. Are you going to do a third pressing of it? I'm like, no, it's done. 100 done. It's done. What? Like, so many people are upset. And you got one. I packed the order.
I did. Snuck in there right at midnight.
That's awesome. Yeah, those second ones sold out. So the first one sold out. And people, I didn't know that these were going to sell out so fast. The first batch sold out in 40 minutes, which blew my mind because the last time something sold out fast was like 2.5 days, and that was a 2-inch record. And those, we printed Adidas soccer shirts, the Goon Crew soccer shirts. Those sold out in like a day or two, I think it was. So those sold really fast. But the first batch of these 50 went in 40 minutes. And then before I could even wake up in the morning, and I woke up at 6 that morning, or actually 5:45 to be honest. When I woke up that morning to post the link, it was already sold out. I was like, what? What? Is this real? Like, it's a good feeling, but I was also like a little bummed because I like to get that interaction with people online about the music and see what they think, and like just have that morning interaction with people is kind of cool. But it was like, well, okay, sold out.
Well, when I watched the video the second time, I was like, man, that thing is so unique. As like, there's no way they're gonna last. And so I just happened to be up at midnight. I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and get mine. And so I wasn't surprised.
And remember when we talked about playing it on the record player?
Yes.
So I can't play it on my record player because my needle goes past it. My needle goes completely past it. It's too small. And my record player plays almost anything. I can play the 2-inch on my record player. Did I send you a video? Did I email you the video of me playing that 2-inch record?
No, I don't think so.
I'm going to send it to you.
All right.
But here's what I did. I'm like, I got to know if there's music on this thing. So any crazy vinyl people are probably not going to like this story. But so I took my needle head and like without breaking it, just pushed it over because it just like, so close. It was so close. My needle just went over it just by like a hair. Seriously, like a hair. So I took my finger and pushed it onto like the actual, music part of it. Right, and I heard, so there's stuff on it, but I don't have a delicate enough touch to keep it going at the same pressure. So I don't know who's going to be able to play this thing because Bob's record player, his arm like bends all crazy to play stuff like this. And he's like, I can almost play it. So I guess it doesn't matter. They're sold out, and we raised $500 for suicide prevention.
That's awesome.
What's up? We got Sarge and Vegan on the Coffee and Hardcore episode 2. And this episode is titled, Don't Drink the Kool-Aid or Snap into a Slim Jim. And the funny thing about this is I thought it was Snap It to a Slim Jim, and Sergeant Vegan actually is the one who corrected me. We sent from the outline, which I think is hilarious in so many ways. But anyways, we got Sergeant Vegan on. We're going to talk about some things. We're going to talk about his new book coming out. We're going to talk about his book that's been out for a while. We're going to talk about him being a vegan, the hardcore scene. We got lots of stuff coming up here. But I did want to say that Bill and Ted 3, Bill and Ted Face the Music, comes out tomorrow. So when people hear this, it would probably already be out for a few weeks. But I grew up with Bill and Ted, and I love Bill and Ted, and I don't care if this movie sucks. I really want to see it. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'd see that.
Yeah,
you see it?
Yeah, I would see it. I just read something on the internet about Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves being friends from that movie, and it's kind of cool that instead of being like kind of bogus Hollywood types, they both kind of like just remain like affable, nice people. Alex, according to this, speaking of Keanu, sorry to segue into the random thing. I was visiting New York a couple years back, and I think I was talking about LA. I worked in a vegan cafe and met all these stars and stuff like that. And as we were driving, I was like, well, who would we see if we were in like New York? Like maybe like, and I actually said Keanu Reeves, and we drove by him. Like he was just standing on a street. I was like, that's freaking Keanu Reeves.
So did you just start saying other celebrities to see if they would pop up?
No, I don't think the magic was gonna last.
It's just one.
Just like such a random thing to. I guess it's like Candyman. If you say his name in a mirror, he'll appear or something.
That's awesome. I'm gonna try that when we get done with this podcast.
We're gonna start saying Keanu Reeves like we would say the Candyman.
Yeah. So look into the mirror. Keanu Reeves. Oh my God!
Excellent.
Nick.
Yes.
Nick, you read this book. You're not a vegan, but you stepped up and you did the podcast host bestest, and you bought the book, supported them, and read it.
I did.
Tell us about what you learned.
Man, you're putting me on the spot.
Yeah, that is kind of.
I read this book about 2 years ago, and then I skimmed through and caught up on it again too before we talked to Sergeant Vegan. So I just want to hear your thoughts on the book, and if you have any questions for him off the bat.
Okay, well, here's the thing that I loved about the book, because one, I'm not a vegan, but I'd
like to interject and say, not a vegan yet.
Okay, I'll take that.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
We're talking about Vegan Strong for those. I don't know if we mentioned the title of the book.
Oh, we didn't.
No, we didn't. Go ahead, self-promote. That's why you're here. For real. I'm not trying to be a dick.
Nope.
Go ahead. No, you can say the title. Yeah, the whole thing. Say the whole title. I love the whole title.
The entire title of the book is we're referring to my 2018. I would like to say masterpiece, but well, it's just a book. Vegan Strong, the ultimate field manual for a kick-ass plant-fueled life. Now, I was originally going to say plant-based, but there's a lot of jazz and hoopla around plant-based.
Yeah, that's a question I have written for later too.
Yeah, that if you say plant-based and it's like processed, or it's like plant-based and it, like for example, the Impossible Burger is plant-based because at one point a rat died or something and it can't be called vegan, and that kind of stuff. My eyes can't roll enough for it. It only makes the whole movement look silly and makes people roll their eyes, and therefore it makes it easier for conglomerations to keep destroying our planet and serving people stuff that is killing them. Anyway, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. You're on the show to push your thoughts and your agenda and your book.
No, I'm sorry that I'm taking away the time from Mick to ask questions.
No, it's all good. It's all good. No, from a non-vegan quote in parentheses yet point of view. No, I'll give you what I liked about the book. Totally full of information, which, because, sometimes when you read stuff and you're going to present a point of view, there's a lot of opinions, but not a lot of information. And I love that there was a ton of information, a ton of places you could cross-check and go look it up yourself. Love that.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely
even recipes, which is awesome.
And I'm an info person. Like if you're gonna teach me something, then I want to see it, and I want to be able. Yeah, I want to go beyond just opinion. I want to see more. So that's what I loved about it. And then intertwined with that is storytelling. And so to me, if you're gonna get your point across, and if you want to grab somebody's attention, you want to teach something, then you throw info and then storytelling together, and those two things is what draws my attention. And I'm like, okay, so this guy's just not, trying to sell something. It's not snake oil. It's nothing. This is legit. And then not only is this legit, he's sharing his life of how he got there and how he lived it. And now we're here on the other side. And, and being in the hardcore scene, from the early 90s and getting back into it in the last, 8 or 9 years, you run into a lot of vegans, and you run into a lot of that lifestyle. And sometimes it's not fun to talk to folks. And I feel like after reading this book, because I was a little nervous, you can ask Wiley. I was a little nervous. I was like, oh man, I'm going to get, ragged on the entire time.
Like, I don't know about this.
But to be fair to you, and I say this sometimes, and some people in the vegan scene have, pushed back, but, I don't care. I think the thing that's been holding veganism back more than the conglomerations and more than the dairy industry and more than the meat industry sometimes has been negative perceptions about vegans, which have been started by vegans themselves. Wow. By coming off as preachy jerks and killjoys and stuff. And some of that, back in the day, we're like that. Yeah, and I think when you present something negatively to people, it's hard for them not to take it negatively.
Yeah, I agree with that. That just like we were talking before, like the whole straight edge, especially in the 90s when it went crazy and was all about, smacking a cigarette or a beer out of your hand and punching you in the face if you're eating McDonald's kind of stuff. That, to me, that's insane, because this is something that you chose to do. You chose to live, and you can't be pushing that on other people. You can show people how it changed your life.
Very
And you
true.
can be a positive force in that way, like your book, and like this kid's book that you're working on. And like you go on these tours and you push these things, and that's a positive change. But you're not going out and smacking people for not knowing the facts yet. And that's why, like you said, yet, you're not a vegan yet. So
Yeah, and I
really
think
good 'cause
you're totally right. And I think a lot of the reason why you would say I'm not a vegan and make sure you preface it like that is because there's often this feeling too, if you say I'm working on being vegetarian, or if you even said you were vegetarian to some people, instead of them saying, man, that's great, that's a great start, that's awesome. Instead, that people are going to have in some circles are going to give you grief because you're not a vegan. And then when you're a vegan, you're not vegan to their level or whatever they currently think.
Sure.
And I think that's a human factor that people want to create this next level of, it's the hardcore scene versus the punk scene. And then the hardcore scene, it's the straight edge. And there's the vegan straight edge, the punk straight edge. And then when you're vegan straight edge, you got to find a way to be more vegan straight edge. You're like, oh, okay, I'm hardline now or something. And then, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
There's this thing in humans that they always want to be superior to others. And the whole thing about being vegan, it's not about that. It's about making the world a better place. And if you're a jerk off about it, then you're not really doing that.
All right, so let's jump in here. So we are talking with Sergeant Vegan, and he is in the military. You're still in the military, correct?
Oh, negative. I feel like I still am.
Oh.
I work for the VA.
Okay, that's right.
So
you've been a vegan since. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say for the military thing, I joined after 9/11. I came back from Japan in 2002, like the end of the year. And then I joined delayed entry program January 2003 to 2006. Was in the military, one tour in Afghanistan. I got out. I was going to open a vegan restaurant. Then instead of opening the vegan restaurant, I tried to figure out what I wanted to do. Then I fast forward a couple of years. I volunteered in Haiti. Then I went back in the military, and I went back in the reserves, this time not active duty. Then started taking my prereqs to become an RN. And now I got out of the reserves to go to nursing school, and now I'm back with the VAs. But I work with a lot of...
You're a registered nurse in California, right?
That's correct.
You have been a vegan since 1992, is that correct?
That's correct.
So I did some searching, some digging. I went and listened to some of your other interviews. I listened to a radio one. That was interesting, and I've read your book, and I went to your page and did a little research on you. So I know that, you are the author of Vegan Strong. You've been spreading awareness about plant-based or vegan eating. Can we just jump right into these questions?
Sure.
Cool.
Hit me with your best shot. Fire away.
Well, okay. I'm not trying to, push anything either. I just want to hear your thoughts, your ideas, and hopefully you can compel people to be healthier, to eat better, and to help save the planet. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. And another reason is because I know you are rooted in the hardcore scene. And so I thought that was a great mix right there.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So, and you're straight edge, is that correct?
Yep, that's right. Since 1991.
Right. Here we go, jumping in. So it's been found that processed meats cause colon cancer. So all of us that ate Slim Jims in the 80s and 90s were in trouble. And that's when I go, snap into a Slim Jim.
Oh, yeah!
Rest in power, Macho Man Randy Savage. We loved you. 90s babies forever. So what is the main difference from processed vegan food and processed meat snacks? Meaning, is it the same process used for both? Does it matter if we overprocess foods as long as no animals were killed? What is your opinion on that?
So there's three main reasons, and I mentioned this in the book, but that I think people should consider a vegan or plant-based lifestyle. The first is for your health. And people often say that's selfish. I think, well, you're going to do something, first make it benefit you. Like, The second being the planet, which I would also say is selfish because we all have to live on it. Animal agriculture has been shown to be a major cause of global warming. And lastly, for the animals, I actually was talking to someone last night about eating meat, and they were talking how much they love pigs, but they also like pork. And I was like, well, pigs are shown to be smarter than dogs, and they're very cuddly and wonderful. And if you think pigs are cute, why would you then eat it? And they were like, well, you have to. I was like, if I haven't eaten 8 years, how is that?
You don't have to eat anything.
You could, So those three main things. So I think the CDC came up with are the ones that showed that processed meat, especially when I believe it's fried, it becomes a carcinogen. Is our processing soy going to do the same thing? No, it's some chemical combination in the flesh that when it becomes seared, it causes colon cancer. It's also, to be fair to the whole situation, the amount of something that you do. So, if someone had a cigarette once or drank 3 beers in their life, is that what's going to kill them or cause them to become is three beers objectively, even the straight edge thing aside, going to make someone into an alcoholic? No. Is 3 beers going to kill your liver? No. Is a Slim Jim back in the 90s going to do that either? No. Like, as much as I would,
depends how many we had, right?
Yeah, but it's repeated. You do something bad that's once to you, sometimes it's a life ender, but usually not. But what it is the repetition of doing it. So eating awfully, as most Americans do, that is the problem. And should anyone be eating processed food? Processed food, it's just a sign of our times and the convenience of it. You should eat more unprocessed whole foods. The more you can, not whole foods as in the market, because that's like whole paycheck in some places. But it
owned by Amazon now, by the way.
Which I'm 50-50 on Amazon. But I guess to answer your main point, no, I don't think that eating Beyond Burger is the same thing as eating a cow burger or roadkill. It's different for you, and the cholesterol is a huge thing. The hardening of the arteries that happens when you eat meat versus when you're on a plant diet or a primarily plant diet. I think people especially the meat industry likes to conflate things and say, ooh, if they're saying processed is bad, that eating Beyond Burger is also bad. And that's no. Obviously, it conflating those things or confusing those things only causes that confusion, which makes it easier for people to stay stuck in their ways, which are destroying not only them but the planet.
Need a little excitement? Step into a Slim Jim. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mick, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Well, I was going to bring up you brought up animal agriculture, and I was listening to a podcast the other day with I think his name was Dr. Greger.
Oh, yeah.
And he was talking about, which I've kind of looked into for the last couple months now, but he was talking about how we're basically raising in these meat plants the next pandemic.
Yep.
Like we're right there, and all it's going to take is for a group of pigs that's kept in, which is so crazy. They're kept in a concrete floor enclosed, never see sunlight box, basically. And you got people going in there and working. Well, they're pooping on the floor and creating a diseased environment. And creating
it's not the workers that are pooping on the floor, though.
No. The pigs.
Okay.
Right. But he's
sorry.
Love it.
But the crossover of if something finally crosses over from, say, a bird, a fowl, to a pig, and it crosses over and contaminates and then crosses over to human DNA, like, we're screwed. Like, we're talking about wiping out half the planet.
Yeah, and I'm wonder just why people continue to eat meat and not be vegan. I guess they just like pandemics. I have a lot going on with my life, and I would prefer not to be sitting home playing Cuisine Royale and Call of Duty and actually going on.
Right. Well, I don't know if that's completely fair, because there are people there.
there is people who hunt their food and actually eat it and do it the right way. I think the big problem is the factory farming and keeping, like Mick said, all the animals in these tight, like pretty much animal abuse. I don't know why these places aren't shut down, because this is legit animal abuse. Which is crazy, because there's no need for people to eat meat every meal. Like if you go ahead.
It's the good people. So not to add politics into this, but my parents are like almost ridiculously anti-Trump. And I say ridiculously because that's all they seem to talk about. And I love them. They are wonderful people. And I am very anti-Trump too. But they include, they kind of let their dislike of that poor excuse for president to transfer into talking about Trump supporters. And I'm like, I don't believe that. Like, I don't think that just because.
What do you mean by that? Like they're talking shit about Trump supporters, you mean?
Kind of like that. And I'm like, look, these are good people who I disagree with entirely. And then they're like this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, it's the same thing as my family members who aren't vegan, who are still, I'm saving animals by hopefully getting other people to not kill animals and not destroy the planet. It's kind of like I'm pulling, people that are drowning out of an ocean and you're throwing them back in. Like, it's frustrating. But when we start to say, I can't believe that people still eat meat, or like saying that people are, as much as I would like to let myself go and like be like, well, how could people still do that? Same with, and the industry is only there because people give them money. Just like, if people were like, you know what, screw drugs, no more meth for me, people would find something else to spend their money on, or to make. They could easily make something positive. Instead, you're like, hey, you're in a poor area. There's no industry, nothing. You have no prospects. Of course, you're going to sell and or make drugs. Like, that makes sense to me. That's something that always was lacking in straight edge. I think the idea that the not being able to understand people's situations, like just because it's different from ours.
Sure. I think that's human nature. To not understand. Totally we only look at what's in front of our faces, But we had this conversation before, and do you think it's just as bad then to support, say, Burger King and McDonald's, who have these vegan options and veggie options, but you knowingly know that they're actually killing animals too, or their farms are killing animals, but you're still giving money and supporting McDonald's and Burger King for their veggie burgers and their vegan burgers, but you know where the money's going? So that's kind of like, that's something that's weird for me to wrap my head around.
So we have, I'm from the East Coast. We have Acme. I don't know what you guys have there for a supermarket. But I go, generally speaking, to Trader Joe's and Sprouts, but I could also go to Ralph's. On the East Coast, I went to Acme, Kroger. If you're a vegan and not going to an all vegan supermarket, it's the exact same thing. You're giving people money to buy goods, and then you're buying the least bad things. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, and I didn't even think about that. So that's a good perspective.
You're voting with your dollars. So when Burger King was doing the 2 for $6, which I think makes veganism accessible anywhere in the States. Now, of course, they stopped that, but that was like 6 months where you could get 2 whopping gigantic vegan burgers anywhere in the States for $6, like $3 a piece. If that's not cheap, easy, and accessible, I don't know what is. Now, super healthy, not as healthy as a bag of carrots, but I mean, a lot more calories, bang for your buck. It has that. So I see where you're coming from. I'm not going to McDonald's unless I'm going to use their bathroom kind of thing for decades. And I didn't change that ban until I was in Scandinavia a couple of years back and I had the McVegan. But I think, buying a vegan burger somewhere is you're voting for with your dollar. You're saying, whether it's
I
voting,
agree to that. Yeah.
it's kind of the same thing as, again, politics wise, I'm going to vote for Biden because I just want Trump to be gone and not someone who's spewing some racist nonsense every 5 minutes. But you could argue that it's, whatever. But that's how.
That's tricky also.
It is tricky also. I would agree with that.
We are put in very tricky situations.
But isn't that life though? I mean,
It
is. It is. Yeah.
I think it's always been like that. Like people like to, I think that we're in a uniquely awful situation. And I completely disagree. Like,
oh, sure. It's always been like this.
Yeah. Like if you go back to when our parents, at least my parents, were in their early 20s, there would have been Vietnam. You have that situation. If you go back 30 years before that, you have World War II, which is like, I mean, totally epically awful, end of the world, apocalypse stuff. Then if you got turn of the century of the 1900s, you got not this pandemic, which is awful and it's ridiculous that we have to
Black Death.
Yeah, you got all these people dying from the Spanish flu.
Right.
Yeah, man.
So
I just watched a documentary on that. That was scary.
And this is scary
Didn't
too.
watch a documentary about that during a pandemic, by the way.
But which one, the Spanish flu or the Black Death?
Yeah, it did talk about the Spanish flu, and it talked about it's the Black Death, right? Isn't that what they called it? Or
Black Death, the bubonic plague.
The bubonic plague.
That was from like the 1400s. Yeah. One of the minor things that I do enjoy about this COVID nonsense is I wear one of those skeleton masks around. I looked at myself in the mirror as I was walking in to cash a check, especially because I tend to dress like I did in the 90s, like hardcore kid. But now that I'm military, there's like a little military, like little taste thing.
Well, that's one thing I like that you said in your book. You're like, I wear cutoff camo pants and a band T-shirt.
Yeah. I seriously look like if it was me looking at this guy walking in the bank, I would think that I was a bank robber. Like military style backpack, camouflage shorts, like.
Mick has a story like that too, don't you, Mick?
I do.
Let's hear.
I do a coffee run I work for a coffee company in town, and I do the running, and I go to the bank for them and everything, and they open up their lobby for the first time. And so I walked in, camouflage shorts, I had a band T-shirt on, hat on backwards, and I had a bandana over my mouth. And I walked in, and as soon as I walked in, everybody froze. And the one lady came out of the office and looked at me, and they're all looking. And then I heard somebody from the back of the room go, "Oh, that's just the coffee guy. It's okay." And so I go up there with my change order, and she's like, "I had my foot on the button." I was
that's
like,
so
"Oh my
good.
gosh, I almost got shot."
The best story.
It's crazy though. I mean, I'm surprised this hasn't been a thing, like people robbing each other. Because how would you, like, this is I wear just walking around what I would wear if I was like, I mean, minus the gun part, what I would do if I was going to like do some bad stuff. And it's like, I wonder if people are doing that stuff. They're just trying not to put it on the news. So there's no copycats. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that too.
I don't know. Like I'm from West Virginia and right on the Ohio border. And we've had, in the last probably 10 years, we've had a lot of bank robberies, like weird for like our area. Maybe it's just because it's rural, but I would think like right now would be the time for that to happen, but it hasn't happened. Like it's been relatively quiet when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, I've been kind of surprised by that too. Like there hasn't been a whole lot of crazy stuff like that going on, but in a place like this where it's happened quite a bit in the last 10 years, it's been pretty silent. So
never to a Slim Jim.
I wonder part of that like COVID life is such a drag that people are like, man, we could rob a bank, but what's the point? I'm just
yeah. That means I got to touch money.
Yeah, it'd be like, ew.
I hope we're not giving people ideas right now. I hope that's not happening.
Yeah. You heard it first here on Coffee and Hardcore. So let's get back to it. what health benefits do you see personally in yourself over the years? Because you've been vegan for a long time.
Yeah.
So what health benefits have you know? And I know you talk about it in your book, but I want people who haven't heard your book to hear it from you right now, in case they're thinking about the whole vegan thing, or they're vegetarian and they want to go vegan, but they think it's a little too hard. Or, you know, if they want to just start as a vegetarian, like what tips would you give people where to start? And what would you tell them has really been the benefits over the years?
So where to start? I think the best way to start is the place that is convenient and easy for you. So I think starting with replacing dairy is a great place because it's easy, you know, it's not difficult. Basically start drinking plant-based milks instead of animal-based milks, and you're not going to notice that. The next is swapping out your meat for adding in, you know, a Beyond product or an Impossible product or Light Life, or there's a whole ton of stuff for meat replacements, and upping the amount of vegetables you eat, because let's face it, most people don't get enough fiber, they don't get enough vegetables. I think there's a junk food vegan thing, but I don't think it's as big as I know a lot of the Whole Foods plant-based kind of like, not extremists, but kind of like I don't know, preachy vegan types would like to think that. I just think that instead of following every single new vegan product that's out there, like, yeah, try them, but definitely concentrate on eating bigger salads, adding more vegetables with every meal. And then after you've done the adding in more things, you're not going to feel like you need to eat animals as much. It'll just be more of a natural progression instead of feeling like there's some kind of necessity to do a cold turkey. And
pun
again,
intended? Sorry? But nothing, sorry.
Oh, all right.
Dad joke. I said pun intended. I said cold turkey.
Oh, cold turkey. I sometimes say go cold tofurkey.
There you go.
Dun.
There it is.
So my parents are an interesting example of this, and kind of like, I think why not being preachy jerk is generally better. So my parents have known me my whole life, obviously, and they are not vegetarian, but they're like pretty borderline. I would say probably, you know, virulent anti-vegetarians would consider them vegetarian, because my mom only occasionally eats seafood and very occasionally has dairy, and other that is more or less vegetarian. And my dad has cut the amount of meat eating down to I wouldn't say a minimum, because what is a minimum, but cut way down
3 times a week.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger says it's minimal.
Yeah, cuts way down on it and is pretty happy and healthy. And the reason being, I think, is instead of being like, rah, meat is murder, rah, you should like this, that, and the other, rah, the CDC's that, you know, like and being preachy, I was more like, hey, why don't I cook this for you? Why don't we try this? Hey, I'll give you a copy of this book.
Good idea.
Book. And
I think that's the best way too, is cooking for people, because then they're like, they would never have tried it before, and they're like, well, this is really good. And you're like, well, there's no meat in it. You know?
Yeah, it's interesting how like the little things like that, like presenting something and not being pushy about it. To
all you people out there who are thinking about being vegan but don't want to give up, say, ice cream. I'm lactose intolerant. I don't eat any dairy at all because my stomach explodes, and because I choose not to because of my lifestyle choices. And I eat oat milk ice cream, and it is, I think, better.
Well, and Ben and Jerry's
great.
has vegan flavors.
Oh yeah!
So let's get into this here. You sang in a hardcore band back in the day, correct? Or do you still sing in a band here and there?
So I've been trying to so I moved actually to LA to get a band going. And that's been a rocky road, like trying to be in a band when you're in your 40s and other people are like of that age and have kids. And then
we know all about this.
Yes, we do.
Then we had a good lineup we were going to get going, and then COVID hit. So now we're just Now we're just waiting.
At
We're like,
standstill.
It's at a standstill. But yeah, I was in a bunch of bands, mostly in Japan, and then a couple in the States after.
That's right. Yeah, we talked about that. That's interesting. Tell us a little bit about. I think I heard that either you told me this story or I heard it on another interview that I was listening to. But talk a little bit about the Japanese hardcore band that you were in.
So I was in a band called Till I Die back in the late 90s. I moved to Japan after college. What do you do with a degree in Japanese? I didn't know either, so I moved to Japan. And
nice.
It was awesome. And I was there for what I would call the golden age of hardcore, which was, at least in Japan, the mid-90s, where like average, and these are my friends' bands, so I can say it, average hardcore bands could get a big show and get a hotel room paid for, whereas I saw in America, people are, I think, having to have it a little harder.
Yeah.
Part of it was probably not as many bands. So not as many bands, smaller country, maybe more free money kicking around to do that kind of nonsense. And I was friends with bands mostly called, let me see, At One Stroke was one, Numb, and a couple others like that. And I hung out with these guys, and then I started my own thing, and that was called Till I Die. And we were probably only vegan straight edge band at a moment there, and one of the only straight edge bands in Japan.
In Japan? In
Japan, yeah.
That's cool.
And having a band and just kind of rando landed me being on that video game I think I told you about, which is
speaking of that.
Say again?
I'm gonna read you something, okay?
Okay.
I posted that picture that I took of the new Coffee and Hardcore mug and your book, and said on the interwebs that we were going to be chatting tonight, and someone put on here, pretty sure that's the same dude that does a voice on my favorite Final Fantasy game, so that's awesome.
that was me. So fun fact, if you listen to the theme song for that song is called Otherworld, if you listen to the whole thing, at one point while we were recording it, they were like, hey, just scream some rando nonsense. I scream straight edge till I die. It's a lost cause, a lost cause. Basically a reference to the band. And we had a song, Lost Cause, which I wrote about being straight edge, in that, you know, being the only person who's vegan or vegan straight edge, as it often felt like in the 90s, like we're alone doing our own thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's not that I think that I'm going to somehow make a vegan world or a straight edge world or whatever, but I'm just going to keep doing, you know, as they say nowadays, I'm going to do me or whatever. And you do you, and we'll, you know, it doesn't really matter if I'm not just seeing results and actually changing things, as long as I'm doing the best I can. But yeah,
I actually just put on the Facebook post, I said, we're just chatting about this right now.
Yeah.
So hopefully that makes him happy. I thought that was crazy that we did talk about that, and then he posted that on there. I was like, I got to bring this up. That's awesome.
What's crazy is that song has like, I don't know, 14 million or something. That it sold 14 million copies plus that game, and then I know on YouTube alone it has like 1 million views. Like it's crazy to just think, because like, you know, I got paid $500 in a copy of the game to do it. It was just a random
worth it,
total worth it. But that like, I'm pretty sure everything that I've gone through in my life, when I pass, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this dude
definitely going to be remembered for.
Yeah, he did all this stuff, and they're like, no interest. And then he was on this Final Fantasy thing. It's like, what?
That's the pinpoint. That's the pivotal moment of your career in life, is being on the Final Fantasy game.
Isn't that weird?
That was your 15 minutes, bro.
Or at least 2.
Yeah, at least 2 minutes. Well, it lives on. People are talking about it still, so you know.
Yeah.
Hey. So, dive a little bit into your Vegan Strong, the ultimate field manual for a kick-ass plant field life. What inspired you to write this? I know, like, you were inspired because you wanted to help people, but there had to be a point when you were just sitting down and you're like, I'm going to tackle a book. Is that how it happened? Like, you just get a moment and you're like, yeah, I'm going to write this book. Like, did you know you were going to write it, or was it a process?
Kind of. What it came down to is I felt like I'd been trying to store up all this knowledge to start a restaurant. Like I said, when I got out of the military, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. Gonna get a loan, open a restaurant. So I went to culinary school and I learned all this stuff, and then it just didn't come together. Well, coincidentally or not coincidentally, 2 of my friends in Philly opened restaurants, and I would like to, obviously it wasn't, you know, I didn't do it, they did it on their own, but I would like to think, or be able to delude myself, that part of me constantly yapping about it was a little bit of their motivation for doing it. But if you ever get a chance to Philly, Blackbird Pizza or Grindcore House, which is they're both vegan places. Grindcore House plays grindcore music and has, you know, vegan coffee, vegan treats. Both are incredible Philly establishments. But I wanted to do something with all that knowledge, and I wanted something that would be different from what I saw as the quote unquote regular vegan books, which had a particular slant and not one that, you know, I found palatable, or at least spoke to me, in that vegan is so necessary. Vegan is the thing that's going to save the planet, but often because it comes from this like pushy, I don't know, where like it comes from a place that doesn't speak to me. I wouldn't think that it would be something that most books are written about. It would be something that I would read. And therefore I was like, well, maybe I would write something that I would read. And therefore other people who are like normal people like me might get. Vegan as not a hippie thing, but vegan as a normal thing, or the only thing about it is you just want to do better for the planet and yourself. So no patchouli, no like egos, and no like, oh yes, I only shop at Whole Foods, and if it, if a meal doesn't cost $70, I don't want to eat it, kind of thing. Whereas more of like,
it doesn't cost more money to eat vegan.
Yeah.
What costs more money is when you get all this substitute stuff, which you shouldn't be eating all the time anyways. That should be something you have every once in a while, kind of like meat. If you choose to eat meat, which is anybody's choice, why don't you just cut it back? Why don't you just do 3 times a week? Like that would help the planet, honestly. If people didn't eat it every meal, and everyone cut back to 3 times a week, like let's start there. I think that's a great idea. But Mick, so you're not a vegan, and we chatted about this a little bit in the beginning of this, but in reading this book, did you notice that too, that it wasn't pushy at all, that it was really just kind of like his journey and how he started with it? And did you feel in reading it, like, was it hard to read it at all at times, or did it feel very natural to you?
Oh no, I thought it was natural, and there was confrontation. Like there was things that stirred up in me, but it was good confrontation. Like it wasn't like I felt like I was like, heck no, like, it was more of like, anytime you come across information that butts up against things that's been instilled for you a long time, you fight back a little bit. But I didn't feel like it was like someone was telling me I was going to burn in hell if I ate meat. I didn't feel like that. I felt like it was informed information. So.
Right. And that's funny that you say that, because I feel like as Christians, especially growing up in the 90s as Christians, like there was this stigma that's put on Christians, which I feel is almost the same thing that's put on with vegans, but in a kind of a different light. But when he was talking about, like, he's eating with his family, and his family eats meat, that it reminds me of like the same kind of thing. Like, you're so passionate about being vegan, and you're saying it's the thing that's going to save the planet. Well, us Christians feel the same way. Like, we feel like, Jesus is the only way for us, and this is what saves our soul. So I kind of put those two together, and I completely understand it. Some people don't get why people stand strong behind things, but I get it, because it's what you believe. And that's the thing too with whatever you believe spiritually, you cannot push that on people. That's a negative. Like, you got to just believe what you believe, let people be them, and just let people be on their own path, So in reading that book, Nick, you said it stirred up some things. Do you think there could be a chance in the future that you would ever go vegetarian or vegan?
Man, you're putting me on the spot.
Hey, don't put him on the spot. Hey.
No. I want to know when you were reading this book and it was challenging you and challenging some of the things that you were taught or that you still do. Like, did it make you go, oh man, he's speaking some truth here. I see truth in this. And do you think that could open your mind? I'm not saying you have to. This is your life, But do you think in that moment, like, it made you think like, this is something I could get into, I could do? And dead air.
So I think instead of putting him on the spot, maybe I should speak to the other reason that I wrote it. I wanted vegan to look normal and sane, and not some kind of weird thing that people have unfortunately made it into, and bring it back to where it is basically eating normal food and just being a little better for the planet. And I think everyone can do that, no matter who they are. And even my, diehard infantry, whatever buddies can do that too, and instead of looking at this as like, do you only eat dead animals and drink their blood and no vegetables, or are you vegan? I think instead see this as a continuum that everyone can eat a little bit better, no matter who you are.
Right.
And
that's like both far sides. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, more than anything, I wrote this as a field manual, and field manual it's kind of the military has this, but I'm Army, so we basically have a dumbed down version of something where you take all the extra BS out of it, all the propaganda, everything.
Like hardcore.
Exactly. And well, hardcore is like that, but then a lot of
take
shows
the bridges out. Go straight for the chorus.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Except some I remember seeing some bands where there'd be more talking and preaching between songs than actual songs. Which, if it's a band that I'm really into, I get that. But at the same point, I could see how people would get kind of bored of like, let me tell you about another social cause that I like, but I do nothing about.
Yeah. Well, getting into that real quick. Remember, Mick, when we played at Tickle Fest? I don't know if you remember this, but I don't eat meat, and I'm straight edge, and this band gets on stage after I think October Death gets done playing, and so we're all sitting there. The place fills up, and the singer goes, "If you're not fucking if you're not fucking vegan straight edge, get the fuck out." And it's just like, what? Like, I don't eat meat and I'm straight edge, but you know what? I'm leaving because of just what you said. Like, that's ridiculous. I don't have time for people like that. And so I'm glad that your book isn't like that.
Yeah.
And yes, I was trying to put Mick on the spot. But that's the fun part.
Well, we have that good of enough of a relationship for that to happen. But I will say, this is what I will say. I felt like there was a lot of truth in the book. And I like to be confronted with truth because that's honestly, truth is what changes people's minds. So for me to read it and be slapped in the face a little bit and punched in the gut, it was good.
Well, I definitely didn't want that effect of someone to be throttled. And I guess part of the why I didn't want to put you on the spot.
That's where true change comes from, right? When you're shaken. I think
sometimes, but it doesn't work like that for everybody. I guess what I wanted to help change is the perception. I think people often choose a perspective because it has been created to look appealing to them. For example, a lot of my Army buddies and buddies who are in the military in general still eat meat because there's a package deal that's presented them as this is how you're supposed to look now that you're. We've gone to war, we come back. So what's it look like?
It's manly, kind of.
So a manly package. They're like, okay, well, grow a beard, okay, which grow a beard or not, but they're like, they saw this dude on the internet, so then they're like, camo shorts, check. They grow a beard, check. They politically,
rob a bank, check.
They're like big into the Second Amendment, check. Obviously, they eat meat. You can't be sober in this. No, of course you have to drink too. Like they
craft beer only.
Yeah, they get this. Get this shopping list of what a quote unquote man looks like, and I guess part of the book too is to say like, dude, it doesn't have to be that you're actively helping to destroy the planet and kill defensive animals, and in the pursuit of being a man. Like, that's not what it is. If you choose to eat meat, okay, choose to eat meat, but it's not necessary for part of the checklist,
I felt like between the book, your book, and then I watched some of your interviews with some other places, I feel like you come across like that. I don't feel like you, like when I say slap in the face and punch in the gut, I that's just for me. I don't mean that in a negative light. But I feel like
I didn't take it that way.
Yeah, between your personality and the book that comes off, I think that comes off exactly how you're saying it. It's great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's done very well.
Yeah.
So speaking of books, you're doing a kids book. I want you to talk about that because I want to know more about it.
Sure. I'm writing a book for children, a children's picture book called The Adventures of Sergeant Piggy. And what started this whole journey is I had the idea to do a commercial for Vegan Strong, and because I had chosen to put a pig on it, I just naturally went with the pig motif and made this animated commercial for it. And I I showed people, and I showed my nieces who are now 4 and 7, and they went bonkers for it. They thought it was the most wonderful thing that I'd ever seen, and just the fact that somebody that they knew created it, and they were almost like addicted to the thing. Like I would show it to them a whole bunch of times. And granted, Vegan Strong isn't necessarily an adult book, but it's definitely not a kid's book, and that I'd say a lot of bad words. So, I mean, at least in this chapter where I'm talking about the military. So they haven't read Vegan Strong, but I thought I would really like to have a book that kind of explains, or at least has an element of compassion that children are learning, but not in a weak-kneed hippie way. Because I think, again, the negative perceptions of what compassion is, of what it is to quote unquote be a man or whatever, be a human, we're so polarized on the, to be a man is to be strong and not to care about other beings and creatures and stuff like that. And I'd also seen some vegan children's books before that did come off very weepy and sad and not like upbeat and fun as I'd want it to be. So I created this character, Sergeant Piggy, who it is his main job is to save lives, and he's also goes on a whole bunch of adventures. And I'm stoked to say it looks like we're going to be able to put it out by November, so right in time for Christmas.
Oh wow,
That's awesome.
We're going to put a link to getting your book, by the way, on this podcast. So Mick, run with it. We're doing the reviews with Sergeant Vegan.
All right. So I got 3 bands. 2 of them are 2 bands I've listened to quite a bit. The last one is one that I just found maybe a week before I talked to Wiley about what we're going to look at. So some new stuff and then some good stuff. So first up, we got Bitter Truth with their EP, The Voice of the Herd. Those guys are from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and just a little bias here. They are friends of mine. Man, this EP, in my opinion, is super killer. That first song, oh my goodness, is so good. Between the Lines as an opening song, dude, killer. I know they're recording a new LP soon for Patient Zero Records. I think it's going to be a full length, so that'll be cool. But yeah, I love this LP. And a few years back, when Wiley and I were playing that fest in Grand Rapids, these guys played this set right before To Live as Sons. And it was one of those moments like I had talked about with Battle Royale. If I had seen this band live, as soon as they were done, I'm going to run and go get their LP. I'm going to run and get all their stuff. And that's kind of how it was. Like, those guys played, and I was like, oh my gosh. And when To Live as Sun was up next, and I was like late setting up my bass rig and all that because those guys were so killer. I think Manasseh is a pretty killer frontman for that band. But what do you guys think?
He's been in other bands too in the Grand Rapids scene. I've played with some of his other bands. So
what do I think? Moshy, fun, heavy. I feel like it made me want to do a windmill at a show and maybe kick the air a little bit.
I would say, yeah. When I lived in Michigan, what's the singer's name?
Manasseh,
yeah. I don't know him. I know of him, but I know he sang in other hardcore bands. I played shows with his bands, and I know he went to like almost every hardcore show. He's like a huge supporter of punk and hardcore music in general. Really cool guy from the few interactions I've had with them, but. So I have heard this band before because the dudes from Worst Self are, close with them and friends with them. And So I listened. This was one of the ones that I heard before you sent it to me, and I just think they're a great band. I think it's definitely like that newer hardcore punk, but with the classic like '90s breakdowns that I really love.
Yeah.
And I also hear and love. It has like a Rotting Out vibe. Rotting Out from California, which I love. Rotting Out vocally, I would say, but some of the breakdowns too. And I really wish this release was longer. It's only 3 songs, but it's just so much raw passion and energy from the vocals. And I had this on repeat. I was making screens at work for T-shirts, and I just had this thing on repeat. And it didn't. I had it on repeat for probably like maybe an hour, and it didn't get old. So I think if it was more songs, it would just be amazing. All right, let's jump into your second one there, Mick.
Second one is Mindforce from Boston, Mass. And the name of the album is Swingin Swords, Choppin Heads. And
Choppin Lords, right?
Choppin Lords. No, I thought it was, yeah, it is. Swingin Swords, Choppin Lords. But, I first heard their full length that came out before this, and it was constantly on repeat in the house. Like Excalibur is amazing. It's heavy. It's got the groove. It's got the guitar, not quite solos, but the standout. But yeah.
So this is their newest album, correct?
This newest EP, yeah.
EP, yeah. What were your thoughts on it there, Sarge?
It's interesting. It kind of reminds me of an 80s band called Forbidden, and it has a prog rock meets hardcore thing. It's like prog rock meets like what band am I thinking of?
Well, it's Forgiven from New York.
Forbidden. Forbidden is from
Forbidden.
I don't remember where. Forbidden was like a metal band that were like very Iron Maiden influenced. But it was like they're a straight up metal band, like zero hardcore, but just the guitars and stuff remind me of that. But then mixed with obvious hardcore elements, and then maybe some crossover like a DRI kind of thing.
Yeah, and I had not heard this band before, and I'm so glad that I know them now. So Mick, you get props for that.
Yeah.
It kind of gave me like this Lich King kind of vibe. I don't know, vocally kind of only at times. I don't know if you know that band, but I saw Lich King in Chicago here with Leeway, and they completely blew me away. I didn't know who they were until I saw them live on this show. And I love the dude's vocals. And so when you sent me this band, I was like, what? No way. This is the vocals that I loved. It's super catchy, breakdown, New York style hardcore / metal is actually what I put in my notes. So I thought that was kind of crazy. Has a throwback feel, yet with that fresh new vocal sound that emulates the old school style, in my opinion. It also has a crossover vibe mixed with old school hardcore / metal. And I'm really getting the New York guitar vibe for sure.
See,
Makes me bob my head.
Yeah, that's what stood out to me because to me it was like a mix of Snapcase and maybe a little bit of Strife. Yeah. It was the album mixing that reminded me of Strife. So it was kind of like a I don't know, but it definitely had the vocals had that Snapcase kind of vibe to it, and then the guitars like you said, that New York kind of Snapcasey. Maybe that'd be maybe not maybe where was Snapcase from?
Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, yeah, like the hardcore that came out of Buffalo is kind of what it's reminded me of a lot.
Yeah, I dig this. Like, this is something that this is going to be on my monthly rotation for sure. Like, I really like this stuff. I love the music that just makes you bob your head, and you can't help it. You like catch yourself just bobbing your head to it, and you're like, yeah, whatever, I can't stop. It's cool. Like, that's what this album does for me. How about for you?
Are we still talking about Mindforce or Burning?
Mindforce.
Yeah, we're Mindforce. I don't think Mick told us what he thinks of it yet. Did you?
No, just that total. For me, I think I sent to you that it reminded me of like a Snapcase with Strife. If Snapcase, Strife, and 6 Feet Deep had a baby, like this is it would be Mindforce.
So I didn't get that out of Mindforce. It sounded, like I said, like obvious hardcore, but it sounded like kind of some prog metal stuff on top of that. But it's funny that you mentioned Strife. Burning Strong sounded like if Youth of Today and Strife got together and made something happen, like a baby.
I put that in my notes. I said it sounds like it's a today's drive.
It does, yes.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Totally. Like there's some stuff that I thought I had to look down at it. So I was like, am I listening to, is this Stripe for you
That's
today?
so
It's like,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah, I said this album's more up my alley. It definitely gives me that Youth of Today's Strife feel. It has that old school hardcore youth crew vibe at times. I heard this band back in April when No Echo posted about this album, and I see that they have an album actually coming out, and that they had an album coming out in 2019 also. So I checked it out. But I just, when No Echo posted it, I listened to it and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I can get into this. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then you sent it, and I actually forgot the name of it. And I started listening to it. I was like, wait, I've heard this before. And I'm so glad you got me back into this, dude, because they're a great band. You picked 3 great albums.
The album, the Burning Star album's called The Fire Rages On. They're from Pensacola, Florida. And I heard these guys through the drummer for Bitter Truth, John. His brother Caleb has a zine, and he posted about Burning Strong. And as soon as I kicked it on, I was like, holy crap, yes. And I thought, and it had the total youth crew sound. I was like, holy cow, yeah.
I would have to say, out of the 3, this one's my favorite. Well, I think this wraps it up for this segment of Coffee and Hardcore with Sergeant Vegan. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it. And we'll put the link to your book, but we really appreciate you, and we really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this and to engage us seriously and take it serious. And even if some of the questions might have been silly, I just appreciate you humoring me.
Hey, this is super fun. Let me know. I'll make sure that I send the link and let me know when it's out so I can further post about it and mention it, and we can share this all around the interwebs.
Of course. We appreciate that too.
Yeah. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
Wow, man, freak out!
We're talking to Kyle of Bridge City Coffee in Greenville, South Carolina. Is that correct?
That's right. Greenville, South Carolina.
Awesome. We're going to chat. We're going to rant back and forth a little bit here with Kyle about Bridge City Coffee. So I'm just going to dive right into it.
what is your favorite coffee type, and how did you get hooked up with Bridge City Coffee?
All right. So my favorite coffee. I'm a big fan of like lighter roast coffees.
Okay.
One that I've recently really started to love is Kenya. Like Ethiopia is like a really popular one, but I feel like Kenya doesn't get as much love as it should. So yeah, how I got hooked up with Bridge City Coffee is it's pretty cool. So I live in a little town not far outside of Greenville called Anderson, South Carolina, and the one of the owners of Bridge he started roasting out of his garage, and then he ran out of room, so he actually rented a storage unit, like one of those self-storage.
Nice.
It's like a little storage unit. Yeah. So he was roasting there, and I was working at another shop in Anderson, and he came by and brought us samples of the coffee, right? And so I tried this coffee. Yeah, he brought by samples.
Wait, were you working at a coffee shop at the time?
Yeah, I was working at a coffee shop in Anderson. Yeah, and he brought in those
samples. Did they brew their own coffee?
We were using
was this a competing shop?
It was
like I'm trying to figure out if this dude came into a competing coffee shop, and was like, "Yo, check out my samples." Like if he was like trying to deal his coffee to like a competing shop.
So you're totally trying to get the tea right now, aren't you?
No,
that's what I'm trying to figure out, man.
So they, I mean, not quite. So Bridge at that point.
Yeah, he did.
Bridge at that point was only roasting, and they didn't have a shop. They didn't have like a brick and mortar location yet. So he was just trying to get his coffee out, and we were using, we weren't even using a locally roasted coffee at the time. So when he popped in and dropped off, immediately I was like, locally roasted coffee? Oh, cool, And then I tried it, and it just like completely blew me away. It was like the best coffee I'd ever tasted. And immediately, like after that first sip, he brought me it was a Ethiopia Koki, I think is how it's pronounced. And it was just super good, super fruity tasting. And I was just hooked. And immediately after that first sip, I was like, okay, I was already plotting. How do I like leave my current job and like join up with Bridge City Coffee? Like I need to be a part of this.
He knew what he was doing.
He knew
he
exactly
had the super coffee.
So I want to know something. I want to know what the Ethiopian Toki is. What is that?
Yeah, so that is like I believe it's called the Koki washing station, but it's like, I'm not sure if it's a particular region or if it's I wish I was more learned on this. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if it's the particular region. I know that it's like the processing station where they bring in the beans, from the field and everything. And there's like all these different coffee processes and how they sort of prepare the beans and stuff before they ship them off, to shops to roast. Yeah. And so it's like a particular area and like region within Ethiopia.
Yeah, Mick, you gotta listen. I'm just kidding. You're gonna listen to episode 2. That Wiley's a dick. So I watched the video that you guys took, but then I also I watched the video. I sent you some of these notes because you said you'd like to be a little bit more prepared, which is understandable. And you said some of these people that are in the video aren't there anymore. And so I kind of I noticed you guys shared the post that I made that we were interviewing you and reviewing the coffee today in the podcast. And so I was like, oh, cool, Bridge City Coffee Instagram. So I went and checked it out, searched through it a little bit, did a little bit more digging, and I saw the video with you on it.
Yes.
And
they just posted that up, like I think this week.
Yeah, a few days ago, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So basically from that first video that I saw, from the link that you sent me from the website, it said Greg and John are the owners. And then you recently told me the other day that John is not part of it anymore. Is that true?
Right. Yeah. So John was the one that I knew in Anderson. That was, he's the one that really got me hooked on the coffee. And he was sort of my first connection with it. So John and Greg were co-owners, and sadly, it's still sort of like a sad thing with us, honestly. But John was from like Kansas City, and he was like a transplant in Anderson, like in South Carolina, and his father was dealing with some health issues, and they had John and his wife had like a little baby, and they were like, well, we really want our daughter to grow up with my grandfather while we still have a grandfather, you know? So they had to make the really hard decision, of after starting this business of having to move back, you know, and be with their family, you know? So we still are in contact with them a lot. They still, Kenzie, his wife, does like tons of our graphic design and stuff, like makes our labels and all that kind of stuff. So there's still some communication there, but as far as like the leadership and the ownership, like Greg has like stepped up to that.
So has he just put this adventure on hold, or is this I have to step down, this is a permanent thing? Yeah.
Like it's like a permanent thing. As far as I'm aware, I mean, we still are always asking for his input and stuff, and he's always willing to give it. But as far as like the ownership, the leading the business and everything, that is all Greg. Greg is a cool guy too. Not to like, he's really cool.
Yeah.
We hit it off
I liked him on the
immediately
video when I saw it.
Oh yeah, he's great. He's really funny. We both love comic books. He was very shocked the first time that we met. We met at this like really kind of hip sort of like a coffee, almost like a barista competition kind of thing. And he kind of perked up when I mentioned something about comic books, because I don't think he was expecting some comic book nerd to be in this like hip coffee community, you know?
Yeah. You're like, hey, I'm a person too. I like comic books.
Yeah.
No, but like I do know, I'm gonna get real here. This is kind of a disclaimer too. Like, I do know that there are some people who take coffee super serious, and I get that. And that's we are not those people. Mick and I actually, we're kind of, I guess, new to the coffee game, isn't that right, Mick?
For the most part, yeah. We're not fancy.
For the most part, we're not fancy.
Yeah. Hey, everybody's got to start somewhere, you know?
Yeah. Well, no, I'll always be a hobby dabbleist when it comes to coffee, because I know the culture can be very serious. And so, yeah, I get what you're saying about the whole comic book thing. It's like, oh, cool. There's someone here who he's not a hipster. He's a cool comic book guy. And he likes, I saw that you liked Alice Cooper too.
Right. Yeah.
which I thought was really rad. Did you say you had Alice? Did you have his autograph on a poster or something, or what did you say? Oh, on a vinyl, right?
Yeah. So I have a great story, if you don't mind me sharing.
Go for it.
I would love you to share.
Yeah, of course. So I fancy myself like pretty lucky in a lot of these like online giveaways and stuff. Some people think that it's like, oh, nobody actually wins that, right? So they were doing for like Alice Cooper's like one of his more recent tours was doing these. The grand prize winner won 2 free meet and greet tickets with Alice Cooper, right?
What?
And then, yeah. And so within that, kind of how those meet and greet tickets work is like, there's, I think at our particular show, there was about maybe about 20 to 25 people that were there to meet Alice Cooper after the show. You get to go tour the stage before the show even happens, his guillotine and all the stage props. Yeah. And then after that, they do a drawing within that pool of people to who actually gets to go on stage at the end of the show. They always close with Schools Out, and they had these like huge balloons that they like throw into the crowd, and Alice like pops him with his sword or whatever that he like swinging around on stage. And I was the one that got to go up there on stage. They like pulled my name out of a hat. Yeah. So
were
I
you
won
just
twice.
freaking out?
Oh, absolutely. And like,
what are the odds of that? You win twice.
I know exactly. Like it was like mind blowing. And like that whole night was sort of like, I'm glad I got like pictures and videos, because like afterwards it was one of those things where I was like, I just can't believe this was like real,
Yeah, no, for real. That's great. That's total Wayne's World. And I noticed on the Instagram post, someone said that you're like a huge fan of Alice Cooper, and you're like, I'm not worthy.
Yes,
that's amazing.
Okay. Like me and my wife, we were the ones that I took her with me to do this, and our interaction was just like their interaction in Wayne's World. My wife was like, what's his name, Garth? Yeah. Was just like Garth, where she was like too nervous to say anything, right? And then I couldn't come up with anything to think of, so I was like, "Oh, what do you like to do in Greenville, South Carolina?" Unfortunately, he didn't give us a history lesson, but
Yeah, isn't he super smart?
yeah, he's like a super.
He's a history
smart
buff,
guy.
right?
He is. Yeah, like he for real is like a history buff. Yeah.
So is Mick here, the co-host. He's a history buff.
I am a history buff. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have a question for you. Since we're talking about this, is all going to tie together, coffee and comic books and Alice Cooper. Did you ever get a hold of the Alice Cooper comic book that kind of was about his life? Did you ever get that back in the day?
I had. Was it the 3-part or was it a different?
I think it was the 3-part. He had a album that went with it too.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
the 90s. I think.
Yeah, I do. Oh my gosh, the name is escaping me. I have part 1. I have part 1 of the comic series.
I have a funny story. I have a funny Alice Cooper story too, because we used to sell those.
Yeah,
we sold those albums and those comic books in the bookstore that I worked for, and the manager hid them because Alice Cooper.
Wait, the Christian book? Was it the Christian bookstore?
Yeah, we sold it. We sold it at the Christian bookstore.
That's weird.
Yeah, well,
I know he's a Christian now, but it's still weird.
He put out one album that tied to those comic books that was, so it was a Christian themed, I guess, album. It was decent.
Okay.
It was decent, but
yeah,
my manager hid it. Like she hid it in the back, and they were there forever. And when the store finally moved to another location, I found them all, and I was like, "What are we going to do with these?" And so we ended
buy them.
No, I think we ended up giving them to somebody. I think it's what it was. Some guy went crazy because we had all of them. But yeah, my manager hid Alice Cooper in the back room. So,
my lady actually really likes Alice Cooper.
Oh, he's great.
So do you ever put on Alice Cooper records and drink coffee?
All the time.
Everyone wants to know that. Oh yeah.
All the time. Yeah. Hey, Alice Cooper has a song about coffee. So.
Oh no way!
Oh yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's called. I think it's just called Caffeine. Yeah, it's called Caffeine.
Caffeine. Mick, drop it in. Drop a clip in right now. Yeah, right. We're not allowed to.
I was about to say you would get flagged so fast.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Is this the tagline for the Bridge City? The building value and hope in people through coffee?
Yeah. That's sort of like our mission statement. That's sort of like what we kind of our goal, what we strive to do.
So what's some of the stuff that you're through your business, through your coffee, that you're seeing that happen in? Yeah.
So we, it's kind of like to play on the name, Bridge City Coffee is building bridges between, whether that's the farmers, that we're partnering with their farms, and we're getting their coffee, roasting it, and then bridging that to the customer who is drinking that coffee, and building relationships, building bridges with the customer as well. We've got a pretty unique sort of like a kind of employment thing going on where we partner with some local ministries and organizations like in the Greenville community. And we get with them, and they've got some young adults that they're already working with that are already in these organizations. And then we're giving them employment, for to have opportunities that maybe they wouldn't have before, and, just to kind of help provide a better future. So we're kind of helping lead some younger people. And, a lot of these, we've got a few high schoolers, it's like their first job, and it's really cool to immediately be able to instill a good ethic and good workplace environment and have them be in that,
Man, that's killer. So it's so much more than just serving coffee. Like, you guys are legit working in the community, helping people out, helping places like all the way on the other side of the world where you're getting your beans from. You're connecting all that together. That's killer. That's awesome.
Right. Exactly. I mean, there's plenty of good coffee shops, and I guess each, I mean, especially in Greenville, like there's so many good coffee shops, and I feel like that's just kind of something that we're doing that's special,
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I see you serve, and I'm going to totally mess it up because I'm from West Virginia. I see that you serve affogatos as well.
Oh, hey, you nailed that. Affogatos.
Did I nail it? Oh,
yeah,
man.
You got it.
Wiley, have you ever had an affogato before?
Yeah, I've never heard it before.
You've never heard of it? Okay.
No.
So it's ice cream. It's so good. It's ice cream. It's like a scoop of ice cream.
I'm lactose intolerant. So
well, they make.
I might poop my pants if I had that.
I was gonna say you could get some oat milk or almond milk alternative.
Okay, cool.
You could easily
I'm
do
listening
that.
again.
Yeah.
I tuned out and now I'm back.
and then we just pour a shot of espresso on top of that. So it's almost like a little coffee float.
Say espresso again.
Espresso.
Espresso. You can't say the X in it, I learned.
Right. No, it's not espresso. I guess that's if you want it really, really fast or something.
That was one thing that was said. Hey guys, don't say, there's no X like espresso. And I was like, sorry.
And I'm like, listen, you've got a guy from West Virginia and a guy from Northside Chicago. I mean, can you, for real, like, leave us alone?
Yeah, we say bagels. Come on. I'm from the UP originally. It makes a baker's dozen's heart attack here, Bab. Okay, so Brandon is your roaster. I saw that in the video. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because he was actually the very first employee hired back in May of 2018. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, he was on before I started. So I started the first day that the brick and mortar location opened. So that was in January 2019. It was like January 3rd or 4th, 2019. And Brandon had already been a staple part of that roasting and you know, he had worked when it was in a little storage unit, you know.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Was it him on the video who was talking about? I don't think it was him. Maybe it was the owner that had to step down because of family reasons. But he was saying that he was roasting in his basement and he had like a makeshift ventilation thing that he was doing.
Yeah, that's right. That
you
was
remember?
John.
You know, yeah,
he had like
I love that story.
Yeah, I guess it was like a propane like sort of exhaust or something that he had like literally in his house, like.
Yeah, he's like, that might not be the safest thing I've ever done.
Right, exactly.
So that was funny.
Yeah, it's great.
So are you a barista then? Like, is that what would your job title be at this coffee shop?
So my official title, what's written on my business card, is drive-through manager.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's like surprisingly not a lot of drive-through coffee shops in South Carolina, and I feel like in the South in general. You go out west, they're everywhere. You know, I mean, on every other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and the idea of having a specialty coffee drive-through. Specialty coffee is this sort of new thing of there's something called the Specialty Coffee Association, and it's just sort of like the idea of grading coffees, like knowing exactly where they're coming from, how they were processed, you know, how they were grown, knowing all of that information about, you know, coffees, and really like there's like a different
deep.
Yeah, there's like a different grade of just like, I don't know exactly what makes something specialty coffee as far as like on the green bean side of it, you know, but we're like weighing out every single espresso shot, making sure we're pulling it consistently, like all of these things, right? And so we found a way to kind of continue doing that, but out of a window, you know, built in the side of the building, you know?
So are you kind of learning like what all the specialty stuff is and kind of getting deep into this? Like, did you know this stuff before working at the other coffee shop, or is this kind of new information to you that you're forming?
No, this was totally new stuff. I'm still learning, and I've already accepted that I'm always going to be learning, you know. That's always going to be my mindset. There's so much to know within the coffee world. Once you peel back and you learn a little bit, you're like, wow, there's so much more to this, you know. So it's just a perpetual state of learning. But yeah, my previous coffee job, I knew the very, very bare basics, the very bare minimum, you know. And it's, you know, as soon as I started working here, I immediately started learning more, you know.
Yeah, kind of diving into your job because you're excited about it, so you want to learn more so you can get better at it, I'm sure.
Right, exactly. And it's one of those things that, you know, I'll get off work and I'll have friends come over right after work, and then I immediately, they come over and I perk up. I'm like, hey, you want me to make you some coffee? And, you know, I've still got my work clothes on, and they're like, wait, you were just making coffee at work. I'm like, yeah, I love making coffee. Can I make you some coffee? You know? So it's always, it's just such a big passion of mine, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's always good when people can do things that they really love and get paid for it. I always think that's great.
Right. Yeah.
Mick, you got something to say?
Well, I was going to say, every friend that I have that has been a barista or is still a barista now and works in a coffee shop that legit, you know, does the real deal, all of them are like how you're describing it. They love it so much. And they're like, I'm constantly learning new things. And, you know, constantly posting pictures of them making the coffee at home and doing the whole, making the fancy pictures on the top.
Yeah, yeah. The latte art. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So you set myself a medium roast. Well, it's kind of like a light in between medium roast coffee, right?
Yeah. So that's right. Yeah. Is
that the Colombian?
Yeah, it was the
Colombia.
What did you send me? Yeah, it was the Colombia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. El Obraje. I probably butchered the name of that, but El Obraje I think is how it's pronounced.
And then you sent Mick dark roast, correct?
Yep. So the one that I sent Mick is sort of like that's probably one of our staple coffees. We've had it since the beginning. We've even given that one a name. That one is called Nostalgia.
Yes.
It's supposed to be reminiscent of sort of like the classic
the 90s
coffees. Yeah, exactly. That 90s nostalgia, we got that here too. Literally, it's called nostalgia.
Yeah.
And that is
with that.
Yeah, people think it's a blend because it's got a name, but it's actually just a single origin Brazil coffee. And that one is like a medium dark. We call it our dark roast, but like honestly, our dark roast is probably even lighter than maybe like a Folgers or Maxwell House, like light roast. You know what I mean?
Hey man, you're up my alley. I like medium roast coffee a lot. Mick does like dark coffee.
I do. I'm more.
Yeah. Hey, but for some time, save a little bit of time, and just to get into it, is it cool if Mick and I kind of do our review a little bit of the coffee that we had?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Cool. Mick, go into it.
You want me to go first? Well, I'll talk about mine since it's called Nostalgia, and it's from Brazil, single origin. But here's the thing. I brewed this in the morning, the first day that I got it, and my wife smelled it all the way upstairs, and it was almost like she came floating down the steps and walked in the room, and she said, "What is that?" And I said, "That's the new Bridge City stuff we got in the mail." And so she wigged out, hooked her up. I got some, and I drank. I'm not kidding you. I drank at least 4 cups of coffee before I left for work. Like, I was that into it. It tasted that good. And I joked about how it says, "Yum, we taste notes of chocolate, nutty, and caramelized." And I laughed because every coffee that I get somewhere says something like that, and it never tastes like that. And this tasted like that.
Right. Yeah. So Brandon, our roaster, he's just so good at being able to pick those things out. Like, I don't know if it's something within the roasting process, just like that. That's what makes a really good roaster is he knows what he's trying to get out.
Is he
of
the one that
coffee.
writes all of them?
Yeah, he comes up with those. We actually still we talk to John every now and then. John was the one that came up with that one, I believe. So John is still really good at tasting. So I always get his input before we like print it on the bag and permanents, But honestly, Brandon's really coming up, and he's really great at being able to pick those things out. I'm still learning how to like taste coffees. We call it cupping. Yeah. I'm still trying to learn how to do all that. I'm better at the tasting than I am the aroma. I can never like, it's so hard to think about what you're smelling, It's hard enough to think about what you're eating. It's hard enough to think about what you're tasting.
It's hard enough to think about that statement.
Right, exactly.
No, but the one thing I do agree with Mick on that is I read on almost every coffee I get, I read that too. Because at the store sometimes I'm like, "Oh, wow, this sounds so good." And I'll get there and I'm like, "It doesn't taste like any of this stuff." But the thing with I'm serious, with the stuff with the coffee that I had from Bridge City, I actually looked at the back of it, or the front, sorry, and I was like, yeah, I taste all of this. This is insane. Yeah, I put that in my notes, but go ahead, Nick. Keep going.
No, I normally drink a little, I drink heavy cream and some sugar and a little bit, but the first cup that I had, I drank straight up because it was so good. My wife was like, "You just drink it. Don't put anything in it yet. Just drink it." And I was like, all right. And so I did straight up, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I had to stop myself from continuing to make it because I was afraid I was going to run out before we had this, before we recorded. So
that's another
I saved it up.
Yeah, that's another thing with like my customers, like any customers we ever get. I'm always like, "Hey, before you put cream in it, like just try it. Just trust me. Like try it. If you don't like it, I'll give you some cream, but try it before. And I've been able to change a lot of people's minds with that, and that's like the best feeling ever.
Yeah, you don't got to change my mind. I never put cream in coffee.
Nice.
Because I'm better than Mick, and I'm the awkward podcaster.
You are. I'm just a wuss. That's what it is.
No. I mean, like, I'm glad that you were able to drink that like stand alone, and like you liked it just black, right?
Oh yeah. I'm drinking it black right now too. So
awesome. So,
yeah. Mick calls me and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna be drinking this coffee while we're doing the podcast." I'm like, "What?" It's like 8:00 your time. You're gonna be drinking coffee at 8:00? He's like, "Yeah, man." I'm like, "I'm not. I got to get up at 4 a.m. I'm good." Like, but it's so good. I love it. I'm like, I know it is good, but I can't do it. So, are you done? Can I go?
You can go. I'm done.
Episode 2. What happened to them? So, the coffee that I had, it tells me on the packaging that it had a hint of citrus, melon, and that it's creamy. And I was like, okay, let's see if this is true. I know I already gave it away, but Mick might, edit it. So I don't know. So let's see if it's creamy. So I take a sip, and right away I did taste melon right off the bat, citrus. It had a bite to it, and it was creamy and had like a rich taste to it. So I was just, this morning, I've been drinking it the last 3 mornings before work. And this morning is when I really like looked at the packaging and was reading it. And as I was drinking, I was just like, this is incredible. This is exactly what it tastes like. So I agree with Mick on that was kind of crazy. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the label did a really good job. And, I don't really know my coffee flavors that well. I could drink, dark, diner coffee all day and be fine with it. So to have something like this in the morning, and like Mick said, like when I grind the coffee and put it in the coffee pot, it smelled so good. I would actually buy this coffee again. I would be a lifelong customer. How about you, Mick?
Yeah, my wife is already pushing like this is something that we need to have in our house all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, you can make it happen. We have subscriptions on our website. You could.
I saw that.
You can just set it up, and you could change it up. You could have 1 bag a month, 2 bags a month, so you don't even have to worry about it. It'll just automatically, yeah.
So I did see that you had a growler for the cold brew, and I remember I think I kind of asked you or sent you the notes like, does that come with coffee? Probably not, because that would be crazy expensive to ship. How does that work? Is that just like the... Go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't think we've figured out a way to ship it yet. I don't think that we've like really nailed that down. The cold brew growler though, it does come. It is like a 32 ounce like growler, and
but it's just the growler, right?
No, in our shop it does come with cold brew. Yeah. On our site it may be where it says it was like local pickup only. I'm not really sure how that works. I should have looked up. I should have read up on that before I. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I do make all the cold brew at Bridge though. Like in the shop, like I make pretty much all the cold brew there. It's fun. There's like so much like to it that you could just slightly change and it'll completely change the taste for better or worse. I've messed up a lot of cold brew.
Let me ask you this question since we're talking about cold brew. How do you, if you're not giving away any secrets, how do you guys do your cold brew?
We use basically, so there's something called a toddy. Okay. I don't know if that's something y'all are familiar with. It's kind of an older thing, but it's basically a big kind of like a big plastic like dispenser, and it's got like a little basically just like a little stand, a little base in the bottom, and you would have the coffee in there. We use like an industrial size one, but it's essentially the same idea. It's called the immersion method.
Okay.
Where you just have water, you have like a lot of water, and you put the coffee grounds, and it's just floating in that water, and you let that sit for like 18 hours, give or take 18 hours. and then you try it the next day, you know, and then all that water will be, it's almost like a tea. It'll have been steeped, so that water is now coffee, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys do 18 hours? Nice.
Yeah, we do it. We do 18 hours. Yeah, I start it, you know, like usually in the afternoon, and I'm able to come in the next morning and pull it. Yeah.
That's crazy. We do that. I work for a coffee shop in town. I do their grocery runs and everything for them. And so I'm showing up when they're actually putting all that together. And I wanted to see how different it was from how they do it to where you guys do it. So
do they have the dripper? Do they have the drippers?
No, I don't want to get in trouble.
Well,
I can always edit it out. Okay, so I'll tell you.
Edit it out. Edit it out. That's the magic of this.
It is. Basically, what they're doing, they're putting it in a giant cloth bag and dropping it into the water in a giant.
Yep. That's the toddy that they're using. That big cloth sack. Yeah. Okay. So the coffee is in that, and that just makes it easy cleanup. So at the end of that 18 hours or whatever, they can pull that bag out, and you don't have to like skip out all the grounds and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
So you don't have to edit that now, Mick.
Yeah, you don't have to edit it. I gave away their secret. Oops.
It's just funny because they don't.
Them out.
I had heard of a toddy before, but they don't call it that.
Yeah, there's different names. Like ours is it. I think toddy is like a name brand, but that was like honestly like that's like an older thing. Like my grandparents had a toddy. They didn't use it for coffee, but they had. I mean, it was a toddy container.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's like an old school like thing. You know, it's basically just a big dispenser. You know, but like most of the time, people lose that insert base at the bottom because they're like, "Oh, what is this piece? I'm just trying to use this to dispense my Kool-Aid or whatever." You know.
Kool-Aid.
Hey, that's another 90s thing.
It is.
Oh, yeah. So here on Coffee and Hardcore, Mick can edit this out too. Our whole podcast is going to be edited out. We decided that we're going to use like each episode that we air, whatever, we're going to, it's going to have a 90s nostalgia name. Like the first one was Help, I've Been Shack Attacked.
Yep.
So if you have any ideas of any 90s nostalgia names, we're open. To put you on the spot.
I really feel like maybe we should tie it into Kool-Aid. You know, since we did mention that.
I love this podcast. I swear, like, if I had a book in front of me of what not to do on a podcast, I'd probably hitting every note.
Something that Wiley and I always razz each other about is the crazy, like guilty pleasure bands we find ourselves like totally diving into Spotify on.
Oh yeah.
So, what's a guilty pleasure? I know you're a vinyl collector. I know you know you're a music fan. So what's your guilty pleasure band?
Yeah, so the Kool-Aid Man actually released an album. No, I'm just kidding. That would be good though, right?
But he did, right?
Oh, did he? Okay, that's definitely going to be
There's a Kool-Aid record. Discogs, keep talking. I'm looking for it.
Yeah, fine. You got to drop that clip here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so guilty pleasures like just like band. Can I just name like a group or like an artist?
Yeah, basically somebody that if anybody else knew that you listened to them, that you liked them, you'd be like, oh.
Well,
embarrassed about it.
You kind of
embarrassed about it.
Yeah, embarrassed about it. Yeah.
One that I've kind of come to terms with it for the most part, you know. But I still mention it, and everyone's always utterly shocked, right? But Gwen Stefani. I love Gwen Stefani. I mean, everybody respects her because of like No Doubt. They're like, oh yeah, like No Doubt.
Yeah.
Like, no, like I like No Doubt, but like also Gwen Stefani. Like it's something that like my wife, like she'll like she has 2 or 3 of her CDs like in her car, and I like low key am like excited when I get to drive her car because I'll put those CDs in, you know, and I'm singing along to them and everything, and then I switch it back to something else, you know, before I return the car back, you know, back home.
Right,
you know?
Right.
I can't let her know that I want to listen to that, you know.
Oh,
yo, I found it.
Did you find it for real?
Yeah. It's Little John featuring the Kool-Aid Man. And I'm watching the YouTube video now.
I don't think that's the same Kool-Aid Man.
Yeah, I don't think that's the same Kool-Aid Man either.
Oh man, it's different. It shows a picture of him with. Wait, here it comes. Boom, boom. Oh no! Oh yeah! He busts through the wall. Yeah. What you got? Okay.
That's definitely Lil Jon.
Yeah. Get him up.
That's not 90s.
It
though.
is the Kool-Aid Man.
Oh my gosh.
It is actually the Kool-Aid Man Christmas song with Little John.
No way.
He's yeah, man. He's dancing and he's here. I'm gonna send it to you. This is pretty rad. And I am a Little John fan because of Chappelle Show. So
wait, hold on. Wait a second.
What? I just sent it to you.
We've jumped from Gwen Stefani. Now you're admitting to liking Little John.
Yeah. For
happening right
the Chappelle
now.
Show. What? Yeah. Okay. What you want?
He's practiced that. He's good at that.
I'd say.
Yeah. What? Okay.
Oh, that needs to become a soundbite.
Yeah.
For the rest of the season. This just needs to be a soundbite.
Little John. Yeah, we're out of control now. Your boss is going to be like, so how did the Coffee and Hardcore interview go?
I'm just going to go, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. You're gonna bring in a 80s boombox and just play the Little John and Kool-Aid Man song for him. And he's gonna be like, it went that good? Yeah.
It's that time of year again. Kool-Aid Man, you ready for Christmas? Oh yeah. Yeah. All I really want for Christmas. All I really want for Christmas. All I really want for Christmas is everything on my list, baby. Hey. All I really want for Christmas. All I really want for Christmas. All I really want for Christmas is everything on my list, baby. Hey. Having a party on Christmas Eve, and I got a whole lot of Christmas glee. Whole lot of gifts I'd like to receive. And you know, all year I've been planting them seeds. Everybody in here, VIP. Old St. Nick, that's AMC. Gotta see it turned out some old CDs. Playing all your favorite songs from A to Z. Feliz Navidad, no eggnog, more Kool-Aid. Oh yeah. Yeah. All I really want for Christmas.
So I'm wondering if some producer's brain was like, yo, check it out. Little John goes, yeah. And the Kool-Aid Man goes, oh yeah. We should put that together. That would be a hit single. And you know what? We should release that Christmas and we should make it a Christmas song. Money just falling from the ceiling. Right? Am I right? Am I crazy?
I mean, how successful
I think
was
it's a
it?
great idea.
How successful was it that you didn't know about it until you were like seeking out Kool-Aid Man's song, you know?
Yo, I told you there was a Kool-Aid Man song.
You did, but wow.
But I didn't know it was with Little John. You're right. You got me there.
I was looking for some rare like vinyl record of like you knew about with Kool-Aid, and man, it went straight to Little John.
Well, here's the deal. I talked with Zach Bridier, Bottled Water last name, who we talked about on the podcast last time. And he's like a vinyl nut and a Discogs nut. And I remember he told me one time, yes, I talked about the Kool-Aid Man in other parts of my life. And he said, I think there's like a Kool-Aid vinyl. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And so I just remember that conversation. So good story.
It's a good story.
Awkward Moments brought to you by Wiley Willis.
Oh, man. Awesome.
Wah, wah, wah. Oh, Mick, I love you. So you got any questions for us? You got anything else you want to say before we wrap this up? You didn't expect us to say, do you have any questions for us? So I get it.
Yeah,
We talk about the Kool-Aid Man some more.
Yeah, we can talk about the Kool-Aid Man some more.
I mean, that's
Okay,
probably going to be
okay.
the name of the podcast.
Okay, I've got one. How the turntables? I've got a question that I want to ask you guys. Each of you answer this. What was your first experience with coffee? Like, when did you start to like coffee?
Oh, you want me to go first? All right. So, my very first experience, I'll give my first bad experience and then my first good experience. The first bad experience that I had with coffee, I was probably 8 years old. I was spending the summer with my grandparents, and I was sitting at their table, and my grandfather sat down next to me, World War II vet, just tough as all get out, spends his days working on lawnmowers, sat down across from me, and he said, "Grandson, I think it's time for you to have some bean juice." And he handed me a cup.
8 years old, eh?
8 years old. Handed me a cup of his coffee, black as all get out. And the way my parents described my grandparents' coffee was, it was straight mud. He handed it to me, and it was.
He had to chew it?
Pretty much.
Was it that old school instant coffee? Is that what it was?
I think it was. I think it was old school.
Man.
And it was the can they kept in the refrigerator.
Yeah, it's got the. Does it have the yellow label on it?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
that's what it was. That's the same one my grandparents had. It must be a grandparent thing.
Yes. So I drank it, and I was like, I'm never doing this again. Like, never. And then all these years later, I get married. My wife's a coffee drinker, and she's always constantly like, "You need to try it. You need to just get it. Just do it." And it was probably about 5 years ago. We had a coffee pot, and we kept drinking it that way. And then she was like, how about try it? Let's try it. Let's get a French press. So we got a French press, and I was intrigued by how it worked. And so I learned all about it, and I did it. And the first cup, I was hooked. And like for a year, that's all we drank. We only did French press coffee. That was it. Straight French press. Every single morning, I'd get up, I'd make it. We'd drink it, and sometimes do 2 pots of it. Anytime we went anywhere, I took the French press with us.
Nice.
No.
Oh, yeah. It was bad. I have pictures, pictures of me holding and caressing the French press.
Instead of your kids?
Yes, pretty much.
Is that still your favorite like brew method, or I heard you say you did a pour over. I think you mentioned Chemex. You do Chemex?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm kind of torn between the French press and the Chemex right now. We do have a what's the one that kind of percolates on the stove? What's that called?
A mocha pot.
Yes, I've got one of those.
Yeah, I make that for my lady in the mornings. That's how she drinks her coffee. It's super strong.
Yeah, I like that, but most mornings I just straight do the coffee pot. But on at night when I
we own the same coffee pot.
Yeah, we do. But at night,
we're coffee pot brothers.
Yes. But at night when I drink, I normally do a pour over. So.
Gotcha. I do pour overs like every morning. It's one of those things. There's so many steps to it, so it's part of my process. Sometimes I think having to use my brain for that wakes me up more than the coffee does.
Yeah. Going through the motions of it.
Yeah. It's just part of the morning routine now. It's part of my waking up ritual.
Yeah.
What about
that Miley? Time now? Did you answered yours? I sort of have a similar thing, except for it's not when I was 8 years old. But I was like an occasional. Well, I mean, I drank coffee, but I didn't know about all this stuff. Like, so I would drink like diner coffee, like black. I never put anything in my coffee.
Hey, diner coffee has its place though. Even though I work in in specialty coffee, I have really good coffee at home. I'm always trying new stuff. Yeah. I still crave just a regular cup of Waffle House coffee. I don't know if it's the mug or the coffee they use.
It is the mug.
Being in a Waffle House, drinking out of that mug, it's just something about it. It's so good.
If you can sit in a Waffle House and not get shot and drink coffee, you're doing good. You're living life.
I have this theory. Sorry, this is a sidetrack. I have this theory about Waffle House, right? So, my wife, she's from Charleston. Her family lives in Charleston. They just built a brand new Waffle House there, right? Brand new Waffle House. So we go in there.
Does it already look like an old one?
Yep. So it already looks like an old one. It had only been open maybe a month or two, but I walk in there somehow. somehow it looks like the aprons. I know that they've got to be new aprons, you know, that these workers are wearing, new uniforms. They look like they're from the 90s. Everything,
They pass
you know,
them down, bro.
yeah, everything. Like it all looks so worn. Like it's a brand new counters and everything. This building wasn't even there before, but it still feels like it's still got that stickiness and dirtiness since the 90s. I was like, man, they've aged this place.
Oh yeah.
You know? Oh yeah.
Right. On purpose. They have like the building, like they have the building, the codes for it. They're like, okay, look, this has to look like it's at least 25 years old. Otherwise it's no good. It has to look like you can get shot in here at any moment or it's no good.
So
no, we got you. We know what to do.
Yeah. So, you know, if you listen to this podcast, you're thinking about the 90s, you're really feeling like you're missing out on that 90s nostalgia, just go to Waffle House.
Drop it. Yeah.
All you got to do is just walk into a Waffle House. You're immediately transported back in time.
Listen, in my city, we don't have a Waffle House. We have its ugly step cousin, the omelet shop.
Ooh.
You ever heard of an
intrigued.
omelet shop? It's like it
Nope.
really is like they're under the same umbrella or whatever, but it's called the omelet shop. It's been there probably since the 50s.
Wow.
And it is, I'm not kidding.
And it looks newer than a Waffle House.
No, it doesn't. It looks older than a Waffle House.
Really? It sounds like it might be like the second cousin twice removed from Huddle House or something.
Yes, and I've been in Waffle Houses all over the country, and you know the instant smell when you walk in, the grease and all that, and none of it compares to the omelet shop in Parkersburg, West Virginia. I'm not even kidding you. You walk in there, it's like triple the smell. It is.
Do your feet like stick to the floor because of all the grease?
Yes.
Knew it.
Yeah.
Knew it and love it.
Yeah. And like
that would be the best place to drink coffee. Like,
and when COVID hit,
ahead, sorry.
nobody, like they didn't shut down. Like, they're like,
you've already been getting diseases from this place.
Right. There's no reason
they're COVID protected.
You've built up an immunity to probably every disease if you've been eating here for years.
They're like, the health department, what? They've closed us down already 3 times this week. Why do we got to worry about this?
We're not open anymore.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So how I got into coffee. So I would drink. See, we go down avenues and tunnels when Mick and I talk. Usually it's me, but this time it was him. I appreciate it. When
it was my fault this time. I brought up the Waffle House.
Oh, that was your fault.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyways, go ahead. What was your experience?
Can't even blame it on him. So I would just drink, you know, once a day, twice a day, just black coffee, whatever. Yeah, I was drinking that like Maxwell House and stuff like that when I was younger. I didn't really care or know that there was good coffee. Like that was coffee to me. I didn't know that there was like this crazy good coffee that has all these different flavors, you know?
Now, was this like high school? Was this like college? Like kind of what range?
Yeah. Like high school. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Around that time, you know, high school, young adult era. And then I remember I moved to JPUSA, Jesus People USA, the commune in Chicago. I would say about 6.5 years ago. And when I was there the first year, we went to this, it's an all men's recovery group out in the woods in Wisconsin, I want to say. It's like secluded and it helps these guys get off to kick like heroin and all these different drugs and even alcoholism. And so they're basically there for like 4 to 5 months and then they graduate this program. Well, I went to play drums with Amy, who is Glenn Kaiser's daughter. She was in Amy Moss and the Unfortunate. And she went and led worship there. And I did some drumming with her. And I remember, so we get these cabins that they give us. And it rained. Like we were playing basketball. Brock and I, who's the guitar player, they had a basketball court there, and that was cool. That you can't. So if you're staying there, if you're one of these men who have this addiction, you can't have a cell phone, you can't have a TV, you can't have anything electronic or that connects to the outside world. So you basically have like books, board games, and you have to talk to people. And they have this cabin that's like a rec hall. That that also is where they eat. And so it's a really interesting place. And I remember it was raining one day and we were waiting, till like 6 or 7 to do praise and worship to do the church service. And so we were all inside and there was a coffee pot and coffee. And I have ulcers and problems with my stomach. So acidity, like things with a lot of acid in it, really hurt my stomach. And we were so bored that we were just making coffee, like different flavor coffees that they had in these cabinets. And I drank almost the whole pot of coffee in an hour by myself. And I started like freaking out. My stomach started like turning in knots. And I was all like, oh my gosh. I was like crapping in my pants. And I remember so it's this cabin and we share it with like 6 other people. So in the bathroom's like super close. So I'm just like in the bathroom, just ripping it up, like trying not to be loud. And I'm like, I'm like dying here.
Oh, yeah.
It's like killing me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And my stomach is just like so pissed off at me. And it's like, and dude, it's like the worst experience, especially like, you know what? If I'm going to have crazy diarrhea and my stomach's going to suck, like at least please don't have 5 other people right outside the bathroom door that can like hear this. Like that's like, and it's super pouring down. So they're not going to like go outside,
Oh yeah.
It was a drag. So I'm like huddled over like, God, I swear if you get me through this, I'm sure everyone's had these moments. I'm not going to touch coffee ever again. I swear. I swear.
Oh, yeah.
So for about 4 years, I didn't drink coffee at all. Like not at all. And then I met my lady and she drinks a lot of coffee. She's really into coffee and she knows like all the good coffee brands. She works for this company called Green Spoon and they help get brands into like Whole Foods and different health food stores. And so she knows all the good brands. And like, I didn't know that there was like bad chocolate. Like I didn't know that chocolate, they have slave labor chocolate and like the same with coffee. Like they won't pay their employees.
That's a big thing in coffee. Yeah. That's something that we've specifically focused on, making sure we get that.
Yeah.
The actual, there's like fair trade, but then there's like the actual like living wage kind of thing. So, yeah.
Right. And that stuff's huge to me. Like I don't support, I haven't supported Nike since I was, 16 years old. I don't go to Walmart. I don't support Walmart. I don't shop on Amazon since last December. Because I learned a lot about them. Like I'm a Christian, so I feel like if we knowingly know how bad these places are and how they're treating other people, but we just go, you know what, forget it. It's easier for me just to order on Amazon or to go to Walmart and get some crappy stuff that's going to break in 2 days, super cheap. That's, taking away American jobs and being made in a sweatshop for 20 cents a day. It's easier for me because it's cheap. I'm just going to buy it anyways. I don't know. I don't think that's right. I can't live with myself doing that. And so when I learned that stuff about coffee and even about chocolate, I don't touch, like I only eat dark chocolate anyways, cause I can't have dairy, but this place called Tony's makes this, dark chocolate and it's slave free. And he that was his main purpose, was to just totally get rid of that and make a chocolate that is slave free chocolate. And when I learned that was huge in coffee too, I was like, what? This is crazy. Like, it just goes so deep. Just our humanity, like taking advantage of people and for $1 just goes so deep that I didn't even realize it. And it super bugs me. So I can't even drink anything unless it's, fair trade coffee.
Yeah.
So she got me really hooked into that. So I started drinking that more. And I really like this coffee called Just Coffee. And really the reason I started Coffee and Hardcore, and I didn't even think about like, you know what, there's people out there that make coffee like their life. And I'm just, I just dabble in it. But I would wake up for work at like 4:30 in the morning and just turn on like TV and drink coffee. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is pointless. So I started listening to my records and would listen to bands. And then I noticed as I pulled up my records, a lot of my records are local bands or bands that aren't super big. And I was like, this is such great music. I think there's some people who probably don't know about these bands. So I started posting pictures of these bands' albums and links to getting these albums. And some bands reached out to me and they're like, man, because you posted this link, like we sold like 4 albums and 3 t-shirts today. Like that was awesome. I was like, really? So I kept doing it, kept posting pictures. And then I had bands saying like, how do I check out this podcast? I'm like, oh, it's not a podcast. It's just pictures of me drinking coffee, listening to records. And like, okay, that's weird, but that's cool. And then I just had like a bunch of
though, like coffee and records. Like that's my two.
Yeah.
My coffee bar is set up right beside my record shelf. You know.
For sure. Yeah, and I think it goes really well together. And I didn't really think big picture though. So when I was doing this, I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast someday and I should know everything about coffee because I'm going to have people on that know a lot about coffee, and I'm going to have people critiquing me because I don't know anything about coffee. But so it just started as kind of like,
you'll always have that in coffee. Just to let you know, I get that all the time. It's it's just this stigma with coffee, I guess. Honestly, the record community can be like that too.
Well, I think we could do that in all aspects of our life. I think, and here's why I think, because I think if we're passionate about something and we actually put so much time into learning and getting to know this thing, it becomes part of our life. And so and we can kind of, that can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It can engulf us really and become who we are, which I get it. But then sometimes we can get snobby about that. I'm that way about some things, and I have to check myself.
Yeah, people turn into what I call like gatekeepers. You know, it's like I don't want anybody else to get into this. This is my thing, and like if you don't respect it the same way that I do, you can't even have a part of it. You know.
Yeah, and I've always been for the underdogs. I've always been someone who looks out for people who don't have a place, and I felt like I was that when I was a kid. So I like what I like, and if people say I can't like it, who are they? You know?
Right.
So that's why we do coffee and hardcore.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's great.
Yeah, for sure.
I just see it as a learning experience too. Like I love coffee and so much that there's new ways to learn about it. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Like I would have never tried Bridge City if this didn't happen. Now I've tried it and now I'm hooked. Like
for sure,
something's going to be a part of our life. I agree to that. So that's why stuff like this makes me so excited, because these are two things that I really, really love. And
and it's great coffee. And I'm not just saying that. I really like it.
Not blowing smoke at all. It's delicious.
Nope. No, it is. And the way it makes, I know I already said this and I'm like a broken record here, but the way it made the whole house smell, can't buy that. I guess you can buy it now. Buy Bridge City Coffee. We'll post the link. You can have your house smell like a delicious cup of coffee.
Yes.
Mick will put a link in there.
I will. I'll definitely put the link.
But hey, thanks for being on Coffee and Hardcore there, Kyle. We really appreciate you spending the time with us and taking the time to listen to probably half nonsense from me and half good information from Mick. And we appreciate wasting your time and you giving us your time.
No, it honestly was a pleasure. I'm a fan of the show, so already I'm a fan of the show. This is only the second episode, but I was just super stoked to be a part of it.
Oh yeah! Coffee and hardcore.